So, how do you want to start?
I mean,
Introductions.
sure.
So for all zero viewers that are three, hold on. For all three viewers that are watching, we have on Gabriot, Narninian, Nightangel, and Never Nathaniel in almost alphabetical order. Um, and we are going to discuss today the rankings. Kind of I mean, state of the train has been a while. Like I haven't done it in a long time, but you guys are more like I think Night Angel, you're the one that's kind of in charge here. So you have up already the
Yeah, I have made the graphics here, and then yeah, I'm gonna. The ultimate decision's on me.
so what is the different lettering? Oh, the
Oh,
different paths.
I just made it like made it easier to look at since the picture is so small,
Mm,
and so the different path.
okay. So do we want to go per clan or do we want to like go per tier?
Great question.
And do we have an agreement on what the tiers, how we would grade tiers?
Yeah, we should maybe get an agreement there. Like, how do we rate a champ, right? What's our criteria?
Yeah, I would say my criteria is I was talking a little bit about Gabriot before, but how I would personally classify champions is how will they perform in a worse than average run. So like
Yeah.
not getting exactly what you need.
I also think
Yeah.
But
we're doing champion paths though, right? So we're not talking about the champion as holistically. We're talking about their specific paths. Because it would be different if we're just grading champion as a whole. Because at least for me, like I grade by consistency, and if you have champs that have a single path that's good and two trash ones, or like one that's good, one that's average, one that's trash. But I think
Right.
we're isolating paths, right?
We
Yeah,
could. I mean,
yeah,
that might be the most
yeah.
unique because I don't know if anybody's really done it per path.
Yeah.
So we might as well just do it that way, right?
Okay. That sounds good
I'm
for
down
me.
with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So we
Could be a
said
long one.
I think we should look at capability to self carry.
Yeah.
So how much can you rely on the champion to carry your run?
Right.
Um, difficulty of synergies. So certain champions have like completely out of control synergies. How likely is it to get those with those champion?
Right.
And then I think Narninian also average. What is the contribution in an average run?
I also think we can give some extra points to ones that flex well. So like in parade, for example, can just be taken
yeah, it's
between 1 to 3 and generally get pretty good value. But something like not repeater, maybe brawler. Like brawler
You kind of
really wants to have all 3.
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough because some champions mix well and some don't.
Right.
But yeah, like
Or maybe aggressive even. Like I don't love aggressive with stalwart, but I like 3 and aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, another example is the firelight.
Yeah.
Right.
That one I think in absolutely need 3.
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
You could maybe
Yeah,
flex
because
endless in, but that would be the only
Mm.
one. And even then, it's
Right.
like specific
It's-
builds.
Right.
yeah,
I've done it. It's not as powerful as you'd think. It's workable, but
yeah, because the
It's like fire
endless also gives quick, and you kill the enemies before they kill you, so you don't get extinguish. So
yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning. I would say let's just go through clan by clan.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
So starting with Hornbreaker Prince, the OG.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do we want to go
Yes.
with
I mean, we
Okay,
can.
so yeah, okay. Revenge. We can just go like
is
the
that Revenge or Reaper?
first one, the revenge one, the revenge and rage.
So Wrathful.
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 Yeah. I think I would put this in good. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it's like it's obviously got much weaker in the DLC. I think I guess the low base health is the main issue with it. but there are a lot of solutions.
I think
My positives there, I think, are that it's the best ring one typically, unless unless you're fortunate to get a good buff for a brawler. But it's the only one that has survivability ring one, like kind of built in, along with scaling. And it's also the only one that if you don't really use the champ, can still give you some value. Like the other ones really need, I feel,
support.
support, exactly.
This
They gotta
is-
be like the focal point.
This is a little borderline for me, depending on how big your shard count is. Like the higher your shard count, I'd say the worse this gets, because if it can't kill the front unit, then it's pretty bad.
And if it dives to divinity too quickly, it's really bad as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the situational, this is more of an okay than a good, but it really depends on other factors.
So I would
Yeah, I
say
think-
if we go, maybe we can. Sorry, Nightangel, go ahead.
Yeah, it's fine. So I was just gonna say like that. It's just, no, normally you would want a unit rather than this guy to carry the run. So unless you get some really good supporting spell cards, but otherwise, like in a less than average run, you're really not using the Wrathful Prince for anything, probably just as a meat shield.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Maybe it's okay. I will say, like the ceiling. I mean, it can obviously with Awoken specifically, it can get really strong if you get spikes, but that's a very specific interaction.
I think
I
as
don't,
well.
I don't even know, because it's pretty tough to get enough spikes to kill like
You need
the
20
end game,
now.
I feel.
You need 20
Right.
spikes minimum, and 20 spikes out of cards means if you're talking not double stack, that's 5 sharpens or 7 cycles of life, and you're never gonna get that. Like you're never gonna get that by the time that you need to be able to kill those backliners. That's the problem.
Right.
Unless
Yeah.
you specifically get the Crucible, or you get like I don't know why you would ever take any type of channeler, but if you got a channeler or something like that. But so I mean, if you go through clan unit,
Right.
because you can't get, unless you get it out of a cavern event, you can't get multi-strike. You can't afford to take, at least I don't think you can afford to put
Fragile.
multi-strike on him. I don't think you can put fragile on
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, it's tough if you're gonna frontline. I could see if you flexed brawler though, and like if you had 2 brawler, 1 wrathful as a backliner, I could see that because he'll gain armor on slay. But yeah, not as a frontliner. As a frontliner, even with spikes, I'd be scared.
Yeah.
Because you're only gaining, however, I think full wrathful just breaks even, right? With 25 damage or whatever. It doesn't even actually gain.
It depends on.
That is a decent point. I'll say as a backliner, like every backliner has to get some survivability, so this is a decent like dip, I guess, for that.
Yeah, but as a backliner, he doesn't take damage, which means that the rage doesn't really trigger, so it's kind of useless thing.
Yeah, it's normally when I see Wrathful being like amazing, you could have picked any champion and no comment. Yeah, I think okay is fine.
Yeah.
Reaper.
Okay,
Reaper.
I don't like this one at all.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Like this, like it's 6 health, right? Yeah. And the scaling is not that good enough.
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe this is a good. Well, let's talk about. I think he's single-handedly one of the worst champion paths in the game right now. But the question is, what would you change? How would you make it without completely changing the idea of what Reaper does? How would you change it? I have some thoughts, but I'm curious what you guys think.
I mean, trample. I don't know.
I would just give him 10 health in the first rank.
I still don't think it's
my
enough.
problem is that could make him really good for rings 1 through 3. And then you could maybe flex to Brawler if you find it. And then he's also, at that point, if you position him right, he wasn't a liability in the early. I feel like my biggest problem with him is that he's a liability early game, but he's not good enough to justify that risk in the late game. So to me, I'm like, either fix this early game, or the alternative, I think this is where you're going, Nate, is to just make him actually more powerful in the late game and live with that sort of bad early game.
It kind of steps on Plan's toes, but maybe quick, like, because the problem is he's not a tank and he has huge attack numbers, but he can't be in the front.
I would change his trigger to be all units on the floor, and then I think he's awesome.
Like Harvest,
or maybe all demons,
or
either. I mean, we've had long discussions. We've had long discussions about archetypes. Ignoring the whole archetype issue, putting that to the side, I think having his slay trigger affect all units on the floor would be a cool archetype.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so it's
like that
branded
damage
warrior.
goes to
It's
everybody.
branded warrior, but it's permanent damage. It's not rage.
Right.
I think would be cool.
I like that.
Yeah, as of right now, like branded warrior is kind of almost better, right? Like it's lower base damage, but
it affects the whole floor, and and more importantly, it affects multi-strike units, which you don't get out of the Prince. Like I guess the one nice thing is that his health is so low that you don't care if he's fragile, so you can dump, as much fragile as you want on him. But the problem is that even if he has all that even if he has all those multi-strikes, he still does not scale quickly. And the biggest problem for me is like Divinity Fight, where you need the multi-strike. You don't necessarily need it for Seraph. It's good for Seraph, but it's not mandatory. But you need it absolutely for Divinity, and they are like second ring. You have too thick units. They're too thick for him to kill.
So I would put this at
second.
I mean, honestly, trash. If there's a trash, yeah, then like he doesn't do enough damage to kill things without spells.
And also, for Divinity, there are thorns all over the place, and there are enough thorn spikes all over the place, and then there are sweeps. Like, it's just he dies too easily. Even though I think even though they buffed him to 6, 12, and 24 health, I don't think it's enough.
Yeah, because like you're looking at 100 shards is what, 15 attack on the top floor for Divinity, and then spikes like every other floor basically. So it's difficult to survive.
It's tough too, because like the Hellhorn to me is so powerful as a clan. So it's like I'd be down. I think there's several Hellhorn cards that could be nerfed, and I think you could even it out by buffing Prince kind of across the board, honestly. Like other than Brawler, but
it's the problem that the Queen's just so much more reliable in all paths, and I think that's where. And maybe we talk about this as we get to further clans, but the disparity between champions in the same clan is like really heavy, but you don't see that disparity in terms of the clan itself. Like as you said, Hellhorn's amazing, which is why you can play the Prince and still win, and it's nothing to do with the Prince. Brawler is an exception. Brawler's good.
Yeah, even with Brawler, I often ignore him though. It's like something better just comes along. But I will say Brawler is the most likely to be a part of my plan.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes even with the armor from the Angry Path just to keep him alive.
Yeah, I mean the multi-strike is so rare these days, and it's just the only path that gives you multi-strike out of all this here.
Infector and Predator technically do.
Oh
but
yeah,
They need
that's
like
right.
multiple
That's right.
points to do it.
Okay, so let's look at Brawler. Good or great?
I think it's good or
Like-
great.
I
Yeah.
tend toward good
That's what
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
thinking.
good.
because it can be pretty tough to make it work ring 1.
Yeah, the low base damage. So yeah, especially before the champ upgrade. Like if you just don't have any cards in your deck that increases damage.
And there's also the constant struggle between him and still just objectively better units. If you have a sweeper,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
you-
objectively
you
better to
can't-
put it on a sweeper. It's
You can't
Yep.
infuse them. You can't infuse them with anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and
agree with that.
he doesn't the brawler doesn't increase health and damage as you level him up. So
Right.
that's just
And I
there's no-
guess it is flexible. Like, you know, I would never really want to flex Reaper and Wrathful together, but Brawler is flexible into either one technically, if you needed it, or if you just started one of the others and then you find a Brawler, I'll often just switch to Brawler at that point. So there's something to be said for that it's so enticing, even with the 1 or 2 ranks, that you just kind of like. I'd rarely want to go full Wrathful or full Reaper. It's like, obviously I'll just take a Brawler if I see it, but
Yeah.
so it definitely seems to be the most valuable even at a rank or 2. It also gets the best 3rd rank power spike,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
still it just doesn't end up being a focal point a lot of the time, even with the 3 points.
Well, at least with him compared to, like, for example, Reaper, like rank 3 Brawler he can sustain himself for a few rounds, which is not, like you talk about Tethys, you talk about other, like, at least he's strong, he has scalability, but he's also like not a pushover in terms of health. He has 40 armor base, right? So he has
yeah.
Yeah, what
46
is that?
effective health, I think.
Around- Right,
to pull
and you
it
can
up.
survive top floor a few hits from the sweeper at that point.
Yeah. There's a very I don't know what I'm gonna do. My computer's like dying. I need to like turn off all my applications.
You don't have an Alienware laptop?
So how many multi-strikes does he get at level 3?
At level 3 strikes 5 times, so 4 multi-strike.
Yeah.
Okay,
So he gets
that's a lot. Yeah.
right. And I guess another argument I have is even leading up till that. Let's say I do go a full Brawler path. Usually, even like a horned warrior in the first 2 ranks often is better than the rank 2 Brawler. So I'm often still just using a banner and not really focusing on Brawler at that point, even if my eventual plan is to like go rank 3 and make him the carry, because it's like, even just a horned warrior has the initial multi-strike. You might find another multi-strike, but you can also add like a good infusion or just health or something,
Or even Gerd's Goad or whatever. Yeah.
Gurg's Goad, quick, anything like that.
Yeah, I guess that's the main thing is you can often find a unit that's as good as the Prince, but at least the Prince, you don't have to find it.
So then
Have that safety net.
let's continue with standards, and then we can come back and do exiles after.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we have the Sentient.
Sentient. Let's go alphabetical
Rejuvenate.
or rejuvenation. Okay, we start with
yeah.
rejuvenation. Explosive.
Okay.
I think we're gonna get some disagreements here.
Yeah, I think it's great. I don't think it's win game by self, but I think it's great. I think that unless you're going for a high shard count run, it still does a lot. You need a solution to kill the boss, but being able to have a sustained plan for the boss while clearing out frontliners is very, very good.
My biggest problem with explosive is it's extremely weak to Seraph the Diligent, right? Removing your cards.
Right, diligent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a huge problem. It relies so much on its healing spells that if you lose them, you just lose.
I think that Awoken is one of the better clans for dealing with the patient or the diligent, though, because
Yeah.
it has 2 artifacts that generate spells, and it also has spells that generate spells.
It also has Vine Mother, so there are ways. There are ways to deal
And
with
Preserve
it.
Thorns.
So I mean, it's not like you lose automatically with Diligent, but it's pretty weak to it. It's also pretty weak to Patient. It can get burst out, and that's the other big problem is. And this is where it's funny that one of the things I started doing was not frontlining with Explosive against Diligent, and then it got a lot better. But then you have to have something else that can frontline, and there's not always good things to frontline with.
Yeah, I think for like the Sentient as a whole, though, it really depends on what Seraph you're fighting to go which path. Like spikes, normally you don't go spikes against chased, and so you would go either the. I would usually go the explosive against chased, and like spikes would go pretty well into diligent to kill the backlines immediately to get rid of those the trash cards that are added into your deck. Yeah, that it really depends, but I think she is pretty like great.
Yeah, I mean, I see your points. Like, I would put it at least good, and I personally think it's great.
I think my thoughts are that it's the best path, hands down, if Wormkin is your secondary. Those being able to spam all of those inspires and just getting echoes is really easy. I also think it's pretty good with Stygian for incants, but I think with the other clans, I don't love it. I thought it was overall the most powerful path for a while until I started to like analyze my losses, and a lot of them were explosive with those other clans and it makes sense to me because you're dedicating a lot to make it work and suffering at it's really only giving you defense and damage for
I will say with Umbra secondary, I guess specifically Umbra secondary, it's probably not the strongest options, and I might go for one of the other paths because Umbra doesn't have good backliners. But for the other clans, I would put it at great.
I still don't love it with Melting Remnant either because it's not reformable. It is, but it's not. Like, you don't get the value. The value is that you have 30 rejuvenation or 30 regen, and then that's just pummeling units. But so I think Umbra and Melting Remnant both struggle with Sentient. The others, I think you can manage.
Melting has harvest units, so yes, it struggles if you don't find a harvest unit, but with one, it's pretty strong.
So
I would keep it at good. I'd keep it at good.
Good. Okay. Bikes.
I like bristling.
Next.
Actually, surprisingly, I've been liking bristling a lot. I think it's a drop in your whatever it's gonna do. It's similar to like a Titan Sentry. You drop it, it does its thing, and whatever you do on the other floor, you do.
Buys you time to get scaling with your real unit.
Base spikes is enough to kill backliners and divinity. So I think there's a lot to like about it. Melting Remnant, it's by far the best sentient path because you can reform it and it gets full spikes. So I really like it. I think it's at least on par with Explosive now, in my opinion.
I don't know if I'd agree with that, but I will say it's pretty good for a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think I would just keep it that good. That it works. It's really good in the early game and mid game, and then late game, if you have a lot of shards, everything is buffed a lot. They're not normally like the 40 damage. Is it? I think it's 40 damage. It's not that much. It's only good to kill backlines. But I think it's another. I think one of you guys did a run that says that the 2 ranks in the spikes and then 1 rank in the revenge path. The
Cultivate.
other, yeah, that may be the option to go for.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's a good drop and not think about. It does its value. It's into chased, it's bad. In chased, it's not good at all. But
Unless it's melting, yeah.
exactly, unless you're playing melting, and even with melting, it's still not great into chased because the chased units just don't kill it. They're not strong enough.
Right.
So it's hard to get it to die. But apart from that, it's also I think it's. Well, I don't know if it's the best. It's up there with Explosive as one of the best Ring 1 champions.
Yeah.
It's great because it kills the if you take the artifact in Limbo, it will kill the multi-striker in the first hit, so you don't have to worry about it just slaughtering your pyre or your units. So I know I really like it. But I wouldn't say it's great or amazing.
Right. I have a tough time ranking it equal or higher than Explosive, mainly because I feel it solves a problem that isn't typically an issue in my Awoken runs, which is killing backliners. Right. Sweep or even Glimmer. Like Glimmer is a pretty common one for me to pick up and just put Piercing or something on it. I do agree though that it gets good value without needing to invest much in it. Like Explosive has to be your focal point if you want it to actually do anything. Whereas Spikes, kind of like you said, you can just put it down and it'll do stuff.
I've typically been using it in 2-floor setups. This is where I think it has a lot of value because the problem with the sweepers is that they die to spikes, and if you have your sentient and you can keep it alive, you just get like, I don't know, Unleash the Wildwood or something like that just to keep it alive. It will kill all of the channelers before they ever reach your other floor. That's where I've been getting the most value out of it.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah,
but I agree. I agree. It's got there's a little bit of an overlap in what the units want to do.
Yeah, and also the multi-strikers, they die in 1 hit.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like,
that's
Temperate becomes a cakewalk with Bristling. As long as you can keep it alive, it just kills everything. So.
Yeah.
Okay,
final one. I've made a mistake here. Both of them are ours, but the Cultivate Revenge.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty bad. Honestly, like it's so slow.
It's hard to say no to +1 draw though.
Yeah, but giving up your champion for +1 draw is pretty bad.
Some champions aren't as good as +1 draw.
Yeah.
I think it's just as I said before, like 2 ranks in this
Bristling.
Like 2 ranks in spikes, and then 1 rank just in this just for the draw. And like the buff, it's good to have, but it's not like it's nothing. But the draw is very nice.
Awoken has a lot of cards that let you draw.
No, you're exactly right.
I've run into an issue where like I'm draw capped anyway without it. So like I think the problem is it has a lot of health, but the Cultivate basically doesn't do anything.
Yes, this is the problem. Cultivate Revenge in particular is really bad. And what is really especially egregious is that the other Cultivate unit is just hands down better. It's just objectively in all ways, being able to rejuvenate, cultivate is just so much better because you can do so many of it and there's no risk. It's just like pump out heals and it loves it. So that's the thing for me. Is it always bothered me that the
On top
Awoken
of-
Hollow is just so much better than the Sentient with cultivate.
And it also means you can't use a channeler or have any morsels or anything like that if you want to actually use the cultivate trigger on your important attacking units.
Yep.
So that limiting factor is also an issue.
Yep.
So
I think it's bad. I don't think it's trash.
I
Personally.
agree.
Yeah, I think the card draw is still nice to have, even though you get a lot of card draws in the Awoken class, but like getting to 10 cards, it still takes some effort, and I think just for having the extra card draw, I think it's bad.
So
I mean, I think the card draw is fine, but we're looking at it as an opportunity cost as well. So like, you're not getting one of the other two paths to get that card draw, and I think that's my main issue with it.
I might disagree. I think on this one, I actually think it's the best path now, even with the nerfs. And this is only something I've thought recently. I kind of would probably up until the last 2 weeks agree with this, but I think I've seen just the passive value that it provides at just no investment. A rank 3 gets you 160 health tank. The draw is nice, but also the 3/3 cultivate it can be okay. It's at its worst if you have a quick sweeper because you're throwing a lot of that away. But if you're actually getting hit every time, especially on like the divinity fight, and you're able to heal it back, that can be, it's well over like 10/10 in scaling to a backliner, and that can actually be pretty relevant. If you think about it, it's like you can get say there's a wave. Probably the high roll would be like there's a dude that hits 3 times along with like 4 other units that hit you, and then divinity. That's going to be a lot of stats, both health and armor, health and damage. And if you have just like something like Unleash the Wildwood, Awake, those type of big heals, that will especially Unleash the Wildwood, the fact that you're getting hit doesn't really matter at that point. And it also basically guarantees Relentless, because you're just you're getting so many stats per hit, especially if you go into that Relentless at full health. And then I think also just it's the most flexible. Say I started Explosive, but it just didn't work out. I can pick up a point of Cultivate, and then I get my +1 draw. I don't have to focus on it anymore, and it's like basically what you want out of a Wildwood. I forget the name of it, but the Chandler that gives you draw.
Mm-hmm.
It the nice thing is it sticks, unlike that thing, which actually requires like babying to keep in play or upgrades, whereas the high health Sentient won't die for most of the fight. But like you said, sometimes you are just already drawing a full hand, and in that case it's not providing you much. But I feel like most of the time I'm still not drawing a full hand, especially if it's restores where I don't have root seeds. So that's my cultivating argument. But I'd be fine with it still ranked low, because this is only recently I've kind of thought this. It is, for the record though, my most winning path of Sentient.
I think it's good at like rank 1 or even 2, but I don't think it's that. I mean, if you're arguing that like having this cultivate at rank 3, it's like it's the stat buff is good, but the other paths like would achieve similar effects, and normally by the time this guy gets to rank 3, you would still have some other spells that would buff your backline sweepers or multi-strikers, because just relying on this guy to buff your units, it's not very reliable.
The other part too is that once it gets low enough, once the sentient gets low enough, it starts buffing itself, and that's like really feels bad. But yeah, I think it's definitely the best case for well, maybe not the best case. It's one of the better cases for like Unleash is also pretty good with it, because with Unleash you're always bringing it back to that like massive health pool, and
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I need to play more with it. I have not been able to reliably get it to support a unit without having to have all the support I would have anyway. You still have razor sharp edges. I still have all like the other stuff too. But I could play around. I need to play around with it more and see.
Yeah. It's a tough one to evaluate because there's so much that can happen with an Awoken run. You know, it's like, are you gonna have quick units? Are you gonna have a bunch of heals? You never know for sure.
Yes. Certainly the pairing with Animus of Will's fantastic.
Right. Yeah, that's the top, I think.
So then moving forward, Tethys.
Leon, okay.
Tethys.
We'll start
Tethys.
with...
Conduit?
Okay, let's start with some other, not this one. Let's start with, what's that? Frostbite.
Frostbite.
It's bad.
I prefer it ring 1 in a general sense.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, it doesn't do anything anymore.
It's really good until Divinity. It's still really good against Seraph. It's still really good against all the other fights. It is trash against Divinity. And it sucks because it is a really good... It's not even a win condition. It's a relentless condition. Like, it's a really good relentless condition. And if you can get it to survive until Divinity, it's fine. The biggest problem was, for me, is Tethys was always a major part of, like, clearing. And you can't use it to clear. And that it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because I love the Frostbite archetype, and it is so... You have to have such a specific Frostbite build to ever make it work now with Divinity. And
Right.
It's depressing.
And even some Relentlesses, it's not enough. Even before Divinity, like some of the ones that just like cut through your units like butter, like
or have sweep or have spikes.
Yeah, sweep, spikes, any of that is gonna screw you.
This is where it's really coming into play. Like, we're talking about specifically high covenant levels versus Divinity. Like, so outside of that context, this could be a really good champion.
Yes.
But it was my favorite
in that
DLC.
context. Yeah.
Well, so we're talking about champion path. Tethys, we'll get there. Tethys has a good upgrade path, but
yeah.
But you're right. Like as a if you're a newer player and your covenant like just growing or rolling up covenants, Tethys with Frostbite is still very, very good, and it'll still beat your Seraph the Temperant. It'll still beat your Seraph the Patient. It'll still beat those champions or those bosses, but it is just absolutely atrocious against Divinity, and that is just it makes me sad because I really like the archetype, and I'm sad that it doesn't work as reliably. I still don't.
It's my favorite.
And like even the double the Frostbite spell, like
does not matter. It just doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Hoarfrost Effigy doesn't work unless you do that really weird ass damage shield stacking nonsense that you can do. But
and you know, I still think it's not completely to I think it has a big edge over the others for ring 1, specifically in the case where you don't have like a Crystallis or Ice Storm or Crypt Builder.
Right.
like you can have some really rough ring ones if it's conduit and spell weakness, and you just get offered nothing,
Trash.
right? Like no actual.
You get a
yeah,
Maltz
it's the
mage,
worst ring one.
You get some other stupid unit. You're playing with drags, and you're just hating life.
You get
Yeah.
spell weakness,
Energy siphon. That's my
energy
worst.
siphon,
Oh yeah.
2 energy siphons, 2 like
I think
these
energy
other
siphon
units.
needs to become uncommon because
Yeah,
it's
I'd be down with that.
terrible as a common card.
Oh, it's so
Anyway,
sad to get
but-
it in your ring one. Yeah, ring one's so sad.
Unless
Unless you get some other thing, but yeah.
so
Yeah.
Unless you're speed running, then it's great.
then it's great. I would
It's great
so
in
I
the
would
daily challenges.
I would put Frostbite as bad.
Yep.
Yeah. We're
I think
mainly talking
just-
about Covenant 25 and
Divinity.
Divinity.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say it's above the Reaper because Relentless, it does more damage, right? Like
Right.
it's like you have to get it to survive. You have to do stuff, but it does stuff if you do it.
I've never breathed a sigh of relief to see Reaper. I've at least breathed a sigh of
Yeah.
relief to see Chillwind, like ring one, to get me out of an energy siphon like situation.
Yeah, and also the frostbite sticks around, so you can play bottom floor, mid floor, and then you can that damage will still happen even if you don't have units, or even if you let the enemy go to your pyre will take less damage because of the frostbite. So still good.
Next,
Spell weakness.
Ugh.
mixed feelings.
I mean,
That's Reaper tier for me.
I don't have mixed feelings on this. Whoa!
I
what?
don't actually think it's still better than Reaper, but I would still put it as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's still. I really I have like this. I had this the. I don't know if you guys remember. I had this very good the spell weakness run in that tournament.
I
So,
remember it. You beat me with it.
It's
I mean,
it's
you can have the ceiling is pretty good,
yeah.
but like the problem is, I would say the spell weakness part is very hard to make it relevant. In the sweep, the sweep is okay, but the thing is, Stygian has sweep units that are way better. That are better. They're bigger, but you can infuse them with health scaling and damage scaling, and you can't do that with Tethys. You can do it with like buffs or whatever, but you can't. So it's a built-in sweep, which is nice because you really want to have a sweep, but it's not. You can do like I will stack the middle floor with spell weakness, and I will play a big spell on the top floor. I don't think that's easy to do strategy anymore.
I think it still works pretty well up until Divinity. I think it becomes tough at Divinity unless you have the right cards to support it. Because
So I have to interrupt really
Oh,
quick. My computer's about to die. I need to
Oh.
switch to using my mobile. Is one of you recording this as well?
Yeah, I'm recording it.
yeah, I got it as well.
Would someone be willing to send me a copy at the end?
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be helpful. And I apologize to people that are watching on stream. I have to end the stream because I didn't bring my charger with me when I left, and I am at 2%. So I'm gonna end. Which one of you is currently streaming?
Me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you stream under Nightangel, correct?
Yeah. No, I'm not streaming on Twitch. I'm streaming the
On YouTube.
the thing on Discord.
On Discord, okay. On Twitch right now that I can send people to?
I could go live if no one else wants it. I could go live.
Quickly,
All right.
Go
going
live.
Just gonna say state of the train.
and then I'll switch over to the mobile.
Sure.
Sorry, I want you to complete your thought. I just didn't want the computer to die in the middle of it. And
Feel free to join on your phone too, if that works.
yeah, that's my plan. I'm going to join on the phone and
Okay.
continue the discussion.
Nice.
I don't want to leave the discussion.
Nice.
I just can't continue.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Are you
It's gonna be
live?
so- I should be live on Twitch. Yep, should be live on Twitch.
Okay. Then sending you guys over. Thanks for watching me so far. We'll continue the discussion on Gabriot's stream. Okay, then let me just get my mobile set up. It's also good. It means I don't have to sit like this the rest of the time.
Nice. I see the raid. Nice. On Twitch. Yep, should be live on Twitch.
Okay. Then sending you guys over. Thanks for watching me so far. We'll continue the discussion on Gabriot's stream. Okay, then let me just get my mobile set up. It's also good. It means I don't have to sit like this the rest of the time.
Nice. I see the raid. Nice. I generally actually think it crushes the game up until Divinity for when I do it. It always feels really powerful. It's, I usually go bottom floor with it. Maybe that's why I'm not doing super well on Divinity with it, because the problem is bottom floor against Divinity, really hard to get through the units and actually get your spell weakness hit off. And then it also gains the spell shield, which makes even sometimes, say you survive everything, if you don't have a good piercing finisher, because there are some times you just don't get a piercing spell in the offered Divinity upgrades. So I am willing to concede it actually might be a good path. I just haven't had a good experience with it yet. I will say I see, like, for instance, you Nightangel, I see you do pretty consistently with it. So I'm definitely willing to be swayed on it. I just haven't had a great experience with it myself.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say my favorite archetype right now with Stygian is spell weakness, but it's more flavor than it is because it's consistent. It's just I really like seeing big numbers, and it's one of the best ways to see big numbers in this game. So
Yeah, the spell weakness, Stygian, it's really good, but like it's whenever I play it, I get really anxious because you don't really know that you're gonna consistently draw your big spells that can kill the enemies. You can draft all the good spells that that are offered, and you have them in your deck, but you're not guaranteed to draw the spells whenever you need them. So it's good, but it's still.
Yeah, that's the main problem I have is, like, because incant is pretty strong and you kind of need to kill so many units that using spells to kill units is really rough, especially with spell shield.
Yeah, and the sweeper you can infuse into sweeper is guess the more common strategy. Or just basically or just the Gorgon.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing too, is like, as good as Conduit, I'm just going to assume we're going to rank Conduit pretty well, but Conduit typically may or may not have any reason to go additional points into Conduit. Maybe 2, rarely 3, sometimes 3, but then at that point it's like Sweeper probably is generally better than Frostbite to pivot to. But it depends, right?
The other problem with the sweep is that you want to play the spells in your conduit floor, and it's
typically
pretty
top.
Weakness. Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I do like going all in on conduit because I think that not having to spell reduce or rely on offerings for the offering cards is so strong.
Right.
Getting plus 30s and getting plus 10 piercings on either.
Or even
on
spell
cards.
chain.
So,
Even spell chain is pretty good.
yeah,
Oh
spell
yeah,
chain,
spell
yeah.
chain. Yep, spell chain
So
crypt builder.
I just think that we are not talking about conduit yet, but in terms of like sweep and spell weakness, I really like the archetype. I don't to the same points you guys already mentioned. I don't think it's reliable, mostly because so much of the spells are front ended. They're hit front units or they're hit random units, and that always feels bad. Like the worst is when you're playing against Divinity and Seraph, and you keep randomly hitting. Like you use your Ice Tornado and you're hitting Divinity, you're hitting Seraph. It's really frustrating. So I think reliability is a big problem. I do think it's one of the. It's in my opinion, excluding infinites, it is the most reliable way to get flying kills. Absolutely. But the biggest problem is it's just so unreliable, and especially early game, it's really sad if you start with the wrong, starting cards and just don't get offered really good spell damage cards. But one thing that is like by late game, I think once I've gotten past ring 6, I typically win with the path almost every time. So if I can get to ring 6, I don't have problems. I think the biggest problem is it's so bad early game and it's so bad mid game. But by then you will have had you're going to get offered something. You're going to get something by then that can rely on the spell damage, and then you just get pulled over and then it's fine. In my opinion.
Yep.
So I think it's one of the strongest finishing champions. I think it's one of the absolute worst early game champions in the game. But more champion paths.
And I think even for the Divinity fight, it's almost impossible to kill Divinity on flying kill because you need to get through all the front line, all the minions first, and then you can use your spell damage on the Divinity himself to actually proc the spell weakness, and you don't.
You're totally right, and the worst part of it is that it only procs on the floor where you are.
Yeah.
That's what makes it terrible with Divinity.
Yeah,
you're totally right.
You can't use like random targeting spells like Ice Tornado because you might have one random shot that hits the last Divinity and procs all your spell weakness that you've accumulated, and you're very sad afterwards because you just lost all that spell weakness.
Yes, I think sticking it in bad works for me. I don't think it's trash tier. I think that, are you going to carry with it? Not often, but certainly more than you would Reaper.
Yeah, I think though it's maybe. Yeah, I think it's the same tier, similar. I mean, they all both these they have their advantages and disadvantages, good and bad, about them.
So Conduit.
That is very strong.
Yeah.
I think Conduit can lose ring 1.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever lost a Conduit if I've gotten past the first 3 rings.
I mean, I guess the main thing is it doesn't win with frozen lances, right?
Certainly not. No.
Yeah, and you could just never be offered a spell. I mean, and I've had it happen, and it's caused me to lose. But it's very rare that happens.
Yeah, I think Energy Siphon, if that's your common, is the worst time to get stuck with Conduit ring 1. And you can still get through it. It's just you have to. It's unfun, right? You basically don't take any shards, probably. Maybe if it's boons, you take boons, but even then you're buffing up the boss. That could be iffy, and you probably don't take the trial. So just 2 unfun things to have happen, right? But if you don't take either of those, you'll probably get through it. I mean, they've kind of designed the game as such, right? that you can't just flat out lose like that. But
And you have, I think if you do that, then like you're the most likely to take power damage. Like most likely.
right, yeah, even then, you're probably not killing the boss. Like if it's like trying to think like
You
an
literally have to get Helical Crystallis, or your Ice Tornado Helical Crystallis, or you will take fire damage.
right, exactly,
It's 100%.
or
Because
Crypt Builder.
oh, that's right. Yeah, so it's one of the three. You have to get one of the big threes, or you just lose.
Right.
Not lose, but you lose pyre health.
Yeah.
And if you take the trial and you take the shards, you will actually lose ring 1. But
yeah,
once you get past ring 3, you auto pick anything that does lots of damage, and you auto pick anything that incants,
yeah.
and then you just roll. And I don't know. It's really, really strong. Turns out being able to play spells for free is really strong.
Yeah.
It's the only, yeah. Or go ahead, Nate.
I was just gonna say, like I mentioned this before, but the fact that it allows you to just dump damage onto your already damaging spells is what makes it over the top.
Right. And spell chains and whatnot.
Spell chains, and yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's also the only time I like Stygian Spear.
Yep.
Because it's now an actual really good incant trigger. I typically don't like the spear otherwise. I hate it probably the most of any common, especially when it's like a secondary, if Stygian's my secondary clan. Makes and it really like you kind of said, it Conduit really enables incant to be insane. If you get spear secondary, incant can be actually kind of iffy sometimes. It's still workable, but you now have to really focus on getting a deck that can actually utilize the incant properly.
So I would not. I think I'd put it at great. I still don't think it can win the game by itself.
I agree.
Right.
I mean, obviously, you need spells and incant units, and you don't always get those.
Right. It has that potentially weak ring 1.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite rare. You do need the damage spells for it to actually pick this path on the first offer. So like you would probably pick the other 2 paths if you don't have a good damage spell. So yeah, really bad. Not too bad, but like really not very good early game and the first 3 rings, and then gets really bad, really a lot better later on.
So then,
definitely the best of everything we've looked at so far, I think, is the Conduit path.
And I think what we're going to see as a trend is that OGs are a little bit underpowered in general compared to. But anyway, we'll get there. Rector Flicker.
I agree.
Yeah, it's
Which?
Speaking of which,
Penumbra.
Oh no, that's right. Sorry, I skipped. Yeah, Penumbra.
Which path
this
is that?
This is the
Architect
for pips.
Yeah.
the best path.
The best path, the usable path.
Yep.
I still don't think it's the great path.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
It's good. Yeah, good. Good is fine.
I leaned more toward okay.
Yeah, I'm in the border there too.
Yeah.
I so disagree. I think it's really good.
I think it's really good. It gives you space so that you can play your units on the same floor, and then that's.
I mean, it takes all 3 levels to do that.
Right. I think that's my main argument. Is like, it's like ring 1. It's good, but I don't know.
I mean, ring 1, it can carry. You can carry you a bit, right? Like, because it's got big numbers and you can fit morsels and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It drops off pretty quickly though, as far as being a solo unit.
I think you guys are underestimating through the entire mid game having an extra 100 damage on a floor. Like I no, it's not 100. It's 60. An extra 60 damage on a floor, which is a lot. It's just 60 damage on a floor for 0 cost for the rest of the run. I think it's really good. It doesn't usually die so quickly because it's usually in the back. You don't usually put it in. At least I don't. I don't usually put it in the front. It's not my frontliner. So you have something like Shadow Eater, and use Shadow Eater to clear. You can fit a Shadow Eater, you can fit Architect, and you can fit a Morsel something, and then Morsels all on one floor. I think that's really, really strong. But I mean, I also overstack a lot, so it's part of my thing is I like having tons of really strong units on a floor.
Right.
But I mean, maybe I should say it this way. I think that in general, when you get to rank 3, the fact that it creates a pip space is it's similar to Cultivate, but it's attached to a much better unit than the Cultivate, I think. So it's the draw, but instead of draw, it's an extra pip space on a floor. You just get an extra one for free. It's an artifact. It's a boss artifact you get for free.
Right.
But it's attached to a unit that actually does a lot of damage, which I like. So I don't know. I have really, really good track record with Architect. I don't know that it's necessarily because of Architect, but
yeah, that's my main thing. Is I don't think it's like if whenever I win with Architect, I don't think it's because I have Architect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see the argument for good. I'd almost lean toward it. I still feel on the okay side though. Like its ceiling just isn't there for me, I guess. But definitely has a floor, right? This one's, I think, like maybe, and I'm also open to. I don't really ever sacrifice it or anything like that. Maybe that could also be something that makes it better. I don't know if anyone
just play it and sack it.
Right, then you have a bunch of extra space, right, to really build a crazy floor.
That might be a little too slow, but it's an interesting thought.
Right, or maybe even send it off or something, or descend it off. I don't know.
I had a run before that so you can put intrinsic on the sacking, and then you have on the sacking that gives you 3 morsels that card, and then you have Shadow Siege, so you can play it, you sack it, and you play your Shadow Siege on that floor, and then and I think and then you would also need like some ways to gain Ember. I think I had like the 2 units that give you 3 Ember, 2 Ember.
So
or
it's
3
a
Ember?
fancy Space Prism.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
That's just a very rare combo, but like normally it's more of a supporting card that 100 damage in the late game and 60 damage in the mid game. It's still relevant, I think.
Yeah.
The last
point
that I'll make is I actually think it's a really, really, really good Ember Drain package champion. I think it's better than Monstrous Ember Drain package because the thing with Monstrous is the trample becomes less valuable the more multi-strike you have. And the whole problem is with Monstrous, how do you keep it alive? Like, unless you specifically have Void Binding, it's going to die. So for me, I love Architect because it doesn't matter. You can actually put it with Crucible Warden and literally just have something up front that takes all the hits, and you dump all of your damage, all of your multi-strike onto a unit that's just already starting with a ton of raw damage. It's similar to me with like Titan Channel, but yeah, like I think, but I don't know that. As I said, I have a really good track record with it, but I could also see it. That's why I say I think it's probably good. I would not put it on okay because I think it's me personally. But if the group thinks, then I'm okay to put it on okay. I wouldn't definitely not put it lower than that.
It's border for me on good and okay. So,
I mean, I think it's hands down the best Penumbra path. I just don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to really say I would prefer it over Brawler.
The problem is that Hellhorn's just a better clan than Umbra.
Right.
So you're not only having Penumbra, you have Umbra.
Right.
And Umbra, it's funny because Umbra's not a bad clan. Umbra is an incredibly swingy clan.
Yes.
You get the right combo, you get the right combo, and it's out of this world.
Right.
But you just don't get those reliably.
Yeah. Yeah, Umbra is like, there's a few cards, you find them, you will have an easy run. If you don't, you're going to have a nightmare.
Yeah, another argument that I would put this guy on good is that he you can just play him as the support that he is, and then just gives you the space that you require and the damage, and you you don't need to take other Umbra cards. You can just use your ally clan cards instead. For like if you're just going for Melting Remnant, let's say the harvest units, you can just play them in the front, and then or you have another good as a robot or another gorge unit, and then you have just a lot of space for morsels as well to just gorge. Just you don't need to worry about space at all. And normally with Umbra, you do somewhat need to worry a little bit about the space that would be normally taken up by morsels.
I suppose I could also agree that it seems significantly better than Wrathful Prince. So,
and I also consider so certain archetypes are amazing with it. Imp archetype is fantastic. You just get extra space. It's an extra just unit that can get buffed. The Transcendent combo, while not necessarily needed, is hilarious. And so, I mean, there's some stuff like that. Melting Remnant, also quite good. You can reform it, bring it back, add more space.
Yeah.
So there's some nutty things you can do with it, but those are super edge cases.
Right.
So this is why I would say borderline. I'd say it leans on good. I would definitely put it. Would I want it more than Brawler? That's a good question. I really don't know. In some cases, Brawler's really not good.
Right.
There are times when Brawler's just
useless.
Yes. And certainly, if it's Ring 1, I would have Architect over Brawler every time. That means I can fit 3 Train Stewards on the same floor as my champion. And, that's going to kill most bosses. So, I don't know. I'm fighting really hard for this. Surprisingly, I don't know. I didn't realize I was so emotionally connected to Architect.
I like it. I think
until this moment.
I think I like the fight. You're swaying me. And I will say this: Penumbra will never not do nothing for me. It's like a triple negative. Yeah, triple negative. Yeah. Whereas Brawler will definitely do nothing for me. Yeah.
Yes. Let's leave it in good. We can decide to move it later. I'm fine with it being an edge case, and then depending we can.
Good with good.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's good. The thing is, unlike other paths in the Penumbra one, it's gonna have value.
Yeah, no matter what.
No matter what.
We're looking at Gorge.
George the Penumbra.
George.
No, thank you.
The only positive I'll give it 2 positives. Ring 1, probably the strongest of the Penumbra paths, but that it's not like the other paths aren't weak either, Ring 1, so it's almost like it doesn't matter. And then the other thing is, if you happen to get Umbra Stone or Furnace Tap, then you're happy. It's pretty crazy scaling if you have a nice morsel build, but like we said, that's the swinginess of Umbra. If you don't find those 2 cards, the best it's going to get you is 1 kill a wave, and that's with having to dedicate resources.
I compare it to Morsel Maid, and I'm finding myself if I prefer Morsel Maid to this, then that's a problem because it's a champion.
I prefer Shadow Eater to it.
Shadow Eater is my favorite Umbra unit, actually, even more than Morsel Maid, I'd say.
What's the worst part about, and this is coming to it's a very similar argument like Frostbite Tethys.
Yeah.
Not as heavy, but morsel builds are kind of shit because you can't play them in the top floor unless you specifically get an artifact that protects your morsels.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Or feast or shroud spike, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You have to get a specific combo, or morsel builds don't work.
Right.
Except for Shadow Eater on the bottom floor, which does work
Right.
and prevents all of the problems of all the other morsel builds. So it's
And
that makes it tough for me.
Or you get morsel made.
Or you get morsel made. Yeah,
Right.
I mean that's what I'm. So you have Shadow Eater, morsel made, and I would even chalk robot on robot in there in the mix.
Yeah.
You can do middle floor robot on robot, and it can do it. But
right.
like your all your other, gorge builds, they don't work, and especially here, it just doesn't work. You can't play him on the bottom floor because he dies to the first floor, and you can't play him on the top floor unless you specifically have that artifact. And even if you do, you have to have that artifact. You have to have Furnace Tap. You have to have something else. And then if you get, as you said, Narninian, if you get something better, you just don't feed him. You toss him on the floor and you just feed your main dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's like I feel like the builds that it would be good in, I'd almost rather just get a Shadow Eater and have it be better, right?
Yeah.
If I'm
I should
grudging a ton, right?
I think we should put the same caveat like we did to some, like Wrathful Prince. If you aren't going for divinity, it's still really good. It's a very, very good against Seraph unit.
Right.
It is a very, very bad divinity unit. Prospect Tethys, I guess, was the other one we talked about. Yeah, it's
right.
It's got an incredible ceiling, but
yes.
like if you're just trying to win, who cares about your ceiling?
Yeah, there are a lot of like the good runs or crazy runs on Reddit that I've seen, but they're just very fringe cases. Don't get it very often.
So then I put it. I don't think it's trash, but I think bad.
I agree with bad. The main reason it's bad is because morsels are so bad, and it's nothing.
Yes.
Like I think the scaling is fine. If somehow maybe if the path gave some sort of inherent survivability to morsels, it would be like a good path, but it doesn't.
That would be an interesting change for it too. Is if it like added health to morsels, then I could see it being better.
Yeah, that would be actually really good. Chat brought up a good point. There is also you can daze divinity, which would allow top floor setup.
Yeah.
But
there's no inherent daze in Umbra. You have to get it from your secondary clan. So you specifically need one of the two, or three, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Or a cavern event. But no, that's also true.
Yeah.
Then we have Monstrous. Better than George.
I'd say
Worse
it
than Architect.
has some upside that is similar to the upside of. It's not as good, but the Spikes path of Sentient, like you can use it to kind of weaken stuff while you set up.
Or goal keep. You can use it the other way around too. You can have a goal keep and prevent things from hitting your pyre.
And it's not as good at it, I'd say, because its base numbers are kind of like all the champion paths that rely on huge base numbers are rough.
Yeah.
Except for
Titan Channel, yeah.
Well, the other argument against it is that you can't have a rank 3 unless you take some sort of space.
Right.
Yeah.
Either you have to get Mind Jacks, or you have to have Space Prism, or you have to have an artifact.
And with Space Prism, like you have to have intrinsic.
And then you're playing Space Prism to play down a champion that's not that great.
Yeah.
I think the way I almost look at it is if I get offered Architect, I'll take it. Like I can't think of too many reasons for me to take first rank. I don't know that I would ever choose the others over Architect, and unless I just really thought I was bored of Architect.
If I got Perils and Void Binding as my starting cards, I would go Monstrous.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I mean
that would
it's
be it.
Hunt for
it's
holdovers.
still like and fringe cases where I have a really strong morsel based what you call it eater what's the path the glutton path. I might take it just because I had never found a trample book.
Right.
Um,
That's true. Yeah, you could flex into that from Gorge if you
You
have
can
the
also
space.
flex into it for Architect. It's not
True.
bad
Yeah.
because then you have a one capacity unit that has trample, which is always good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in the situation where ring 1 you're offered Gorge and Trample. I feel like I typically actually go to Gorge more. Really depends on the starting artifacts, but I feel like I'll get better stats out of the Gorge for at least ring 1. It's tough though. I mean, Trample can deal pretty well with most ring 1s as well. I just feel like I'm basically guaranteed to beat the boss if I go Gorge, whereas it's not necessarily true with Trample. So, but at the same time, if I can, especially like against clergymen, I definitely would be better off with Trample. But I don't know. I feel like often, especially if I take like Trial that does something, Trample can get a little bit overrun ring 1 sometimes.
And spikes especially can be
Right.
really brutal on trample.
Right.
So I'll say that I like it better than the glutton path, but it's mainly because of the situational cases where it's a really good utility. But it's not every run that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's even I mentioned like I sometimes goal keep. To be honest, most of the time when I'm in those runs, that works up until like ring 5, and then even at like you go to max rank and you can put it on a floor. Nothing survives. If I have a build that's going to defeat divinity, it's not going to leak.
Right.
And that's just typically how it goes. And so you just end up having a penumbra up there to just get killed by divinity.
Right. Yeah. And get you ember drained turn 2.
Yeah, and I think it's just I would put it at bad.
Yeah.
Just with the
Yeah,
Gorge.
I would put it at bad, but it's above the Gorge path. Like
Yeah. But it's very marginal.
Yeah, we'll put it like that. Just
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Moving on.
We're moving on to Rector Flicker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's
Harvest.
funny is this is one where this has changed wildly for me
Same.
over time during the DLC.
Yep. 100% agree. All 3 paths too.
Yes,
All 3 paths have
yes.
changed for me.
Yes.
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts because I haven't played in a while. Played it in a while, so
Yeah.
What do you want
For me, only 2. Like I still don't like the burnout pass. But
There's a case for it, but anyway, we can talk about that. What are we starting with?
Servant's Harvest.
I think Harvest is not as good as it used to be.
I agree with that. I still think it's pretty good. It's just really slow to scale offensively. So I think defensively, it's good. And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes it's not what you need, though.
It's best with I think it's the best frontliner with a sweeper build, hands down. Like you have a sweeper build and you can scale your sweepers. You want Rector Flicker because you're just going to have the biggest tank in the world.
Yeah.
Outside of that context, even with like, and this is like, I had so many runs in a row that were Accumulator, Harvest Baron, infused with Harvest Baron, and just losing over and over and over again with these builds.
Ring 5.
Yeah, Ring 5 and Ring 7 and Divinity.
It's tough to get
Because-
going, yeah.
It's really hard to scale fast enough without some type of massive boost.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, Harvest is a really tough one for me to evaluate. Like, The health scaling is insane. You will not lose Relentless as long as you get through the waves, but that's the problem, right? Getting through the waves, it doesn't provide much for that. I mean, it provides probably the best tank in the game, arguably, but the damage scaling isn't super fast, especially in those early ranks. But and I almost feel it's redundant with a lot of kind of defensive melting options like stealth. You have two really good ways to get stealth. You have dazed, two pretty good dazed cards, and you just have reform. Sometimes you don't always have it with drag variant melting remnant, but I guess one thing I will say is it's pretty good early rings. It gives the dregs similar to Dark Calling. It makes the dregs a pretty good card, which I hate dregs otherwise. It also is a pretty good flex, I think, into Dark Calling, because Dark Calling additional ranks might not get you much, but it can make it easier to play Dark Calling on a bottom floor, for example, because you're getting those harvests, and now it gets survivability, so that even if your dudes get taken out, it'll still survive. And also just eventually, it get even 2 ranks of harvest and 1 of Dark Calling, you can get him scaled up pretty good on health, and then for Relentless, you can just stick your now super scaled up dudes behind him, like drafts or whatnot. So it's like I feel like it is good. And it's also worth noting that there's some players that just do really good with Harvest. Like I've seen some pretty good win rates come across with it. So it's hard for me to say it's bad or even okay, but I tend to lean toward okay. Okay or good is where I would put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
my
think it's
personal
okay.
my personal experience is I have the best win rate with it, so I guess I have a different experience to you guys. But I mean, it's like on its own. I guess the times where a lot of times it ends up not being the key to the victory though. So it's just a decent unit on its own. I'm okay with okay.
Yeah. I could see arguments for good, even great, honestly. It's a tough one. It's a tough one for me to evaluate. I don't like. There's kind of 2 different forms of harvest, right? There's the one where you go Dark Calling 1, Harvest 2, but then there's just all in Harvest Rector, right? Both are pretty good in the right situation. The right situation comes up decently often. I'd be fine putting it good at least, but I don't know. Good, great, or okay all makes sense to me.
I think it's just too slow, and sometimes you can't, you don't have enough damage to kill the enemies, the waves,
Yeah.
for the harvest to trigger. So
Right.
there's that, and then you sometimes you leak some enemies, and then you have to kill them with spells, and then you lose the harvest for those enemies. So, are we good? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Burn Bright.
Burn Bright.
This one's gone down for me.
Same.
It just it's okay, but I don't know. It doesn't. It's just not as enticing as the others to me. It's not going to provide as much typically.
Its stats are too low for what it does.
Right, and it doesn't really, I don't know. It's not bad. I could never call it bad. It's obviously bad if you don't have Reform or Burnout extension, but it's hard for me if I'm offered Harvest or Dark Calling to ever pick Burnout over it anymore, even if I do have like Molded or Purifying Cleanse or something in my opener. Dark Calling, Harvest, I think are going to get me more.
I really like it as a stat boost to Dark Calling. One off, just getting plus 50/50, I find to be really valuable. Or no, it's not 50/50 now. It got nerfed. It's like 45/45, but still, just adding extra stats on a Dark Calling so it's a little bit more survivable.
Right.
I do that, but only in builds where I have a reliable way to either bring it, not even bring it back, a reliable way to extend its burnout.
Right.
Yeah, that's the main issue.
Yeah.
like you have to include that in your deck. So I think it's bad if that's the only reason you have those cards in your deck. But if you are doing something else with it, then it makes sense.
I think
the
it's
thing is, another, I mean, a good thing about it is that if you're running burnout, for example, Paraffin Enforcer is really good with that. So, the, but normally, burnout extension, normally you would, usually the burnout extension cards are available, but in some cases, in some runs, you don't get burnout extension cards. So that can be a problem. But I
Right.
think we can put it at okay.
yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's bad. I would
Behind
definitely
the harvest.
right. Yeah, I think I
Now,
agree with that.
this next one's kind of weird. So this Dark Calling, I would say it's great, but only one level of it. like I don't think the actual scaling is great. I mean, it can be good, but I think having one level of that with Harvest is really my preferred way to use this champion.
Yeah, I'd agree with one level of it and Harvest being the best. I still think I can make 3 into Dark Calling be fine. This might be my own hubris with just how it's done lately. I almost want to rank it win game by itself.
Oh my gosh.
I would. The only reason I disagree is you can't win it with dregs. You have to have something that scales legitimately well, or it can't win. So that's why I'd say I think great makes sense. I can't put it on win game by itself exactly for that reason. You have to have something that benefits from the reform.
True. Although I will say, I think Ring. I'd be interested to try this out. I know Ring 1 you can beat it just with dregs. But I wonder. I feel like Ring 1 through 3 you can almost beat it just with dregs. But agreed, past those rings, dregs become a little bit worse. Obviously, I just find so often you're finding like a draft or a Paraffin Enforcer, even just some tombs. To me, what it does is it opens up the entire melting game plan to you. Whereas like if I go Harvest, and I don't have Reform or whatnot, draft can be tough to take. One of the best infusions and best just sort of non-banner units in the game goes from iffy, but with Dark Calling, it's like I can just take it confidently.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the like taking it one rank or because the Richter Flicker does like he has the drafts, I mean the dregs instead of like Little Fade, which has the reforms, which is so much better. Like taking the Dark Calling here, it gives you that reform tool to bring back units, and that's like the one of the key mechanics of Melting Remnant, and it unlocks that just with one rank, so it's really good.
It's tough to figure, like Dark Calling, it took me from this almost a year to even get proficient with it. Like there's so much nuance to how to play it. It's like every fight you might make a different justification for like the floor you want to play it on. You also have to pay attention to like burnout timers and stuff, so it's like it's not an easy one to play, which is why for the longest time this game I just never played it. I just thought it was bad, but yeah, I think great makes sense.
I mean, it's weird that I rank it at great, but not 3 levels of it. Like I think 3 levels of
Right.
it is
It's not
lower.
Right.
Like, but the first level makes it great.
Yeah.
So I think I've talked about this is like completely off topic, but if I were to rework a little bit Melting Remnant, this has been my pet theory. I think that drag being the starter card is the mistake. I think we've talked about this before. my thought would be, if I were to modify things, because I think drag actually would be pretty good with Little Fade. Just like draft is pretty good with Little Fade. And what I would do is I would keep drag stats the same, but have a very similar thing like the bog flies. Make it a common unit so that it comes up in drafts like dregs do, or a non-common unit, I guess, in that case. And I would have it damage scale with its number of burnout. And then I would replace drag with Wicklash, half damage, 1 burnout as a starter card.
So +5 damage.
Almost
Plus
like
5 damage, plus 1 burnout.
like a root seeds. I like that.
Or maybe +2 burnout. I don't know.
But that way, I think you, one, have a card that works like really, really well with Burn Bright. And that's the biggest problem for me. Like Burn Bright, like we have it in okay. I would almost move it to bad, because if you don't have any extension, you cannot take it.
Or
It's untakeable.
you can take it with Reform.
So yeah, reform, but like if you start with like without a reform, and like let's say you start with a draft, you can't take it. It's untakeable. You will lose ring 1.
Yeah. It's weird to have a path that
So
literally can't take. Like,
you could technically not play it the first turn and cycle back into it, but that at that point it's like, why? You might as well just go harvest or dark calling.
But at Covenant 25, I think you have to be lucky to cycle back into it. You can't rely on.
yeah.
It's all
And then
100%
ring 2, those purifiers. Ugh.
Yeah, ring 2, you're screwed.
So
Agreed
what's
there.
fascinating about the coding of the game is that the champion has intrinsic, which means it does not have priority, which means that on recycle, it is not guaranteed to show up like a priority unit would.
Right. Though, I guess I could argue there, though, that, the drag, you could play every drag out the first cycle through, and then at that point, your deck should only be, what is it, like 12 cards or something? So you'd have to low roll to not find it again, but it is possible, definitely, to...
But one of the bosses has blights. So
Well, I guess I'm more just talking about ring 1. Like ring 2, I agree. You're like, you can, if you don't find reform.
No, ring 1, one of the bosses is.
Oh, right. Yep, that's true. True. That does make the low roll more possible.
So you're drawing 4 cards, like, and then ring 2, 3 cards, like. It's basically like Nate said, like not literally untakeable, but just really, really bad.
Yeah. Now, granted, it's unlikely that you won't find burnout extension or reform in your ring 1 rewards. There's half of the that makes up half of the common tier.
All right, I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Oh, all right. But it's still possible not to get anything offered. It happens somewhat often, but yeah. We're probably just splitting hairs at this point. I think we all kind of don't like Burnout Rector.
I think we all agree, and we're
I was
just-
making the case for why I think it would be in bad,
Right.
and why I think it's
Yeah.
But
I could actually agree with bad, because to me it's like, why take it? Maybe even trash.
I don't think it's trash tier, because as I said, like you can make it work.
Yeah.
And you can. It's another unit that with Umbra you can do Ember Drain package with it.
Right.
It's not great, because then it dies and you lose all of it. But if you have a way to keep it, it's fine. But
And-
I would take Accumulator or Dark Calling over it anytime.
Yeah, same. It is funny though that I will say when I take blank pages, it's probably one of my most excited ones to see.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Rank 3 by itself for 3 turns, you don't have to worry about it. It's
Right,
fine. But
right.
like, when has blank pages ever won you a game? Ever.
Right. It's lost me the game. It's definitely lost me the game. Yeah, that's. I think it did win me one once.
I mean,
That's about
you
it.
can you can get the endless little phase, and then you can just keep on playing him.
That's
See,
true. And if you got Firelight, it even wouldn't be terrible, except for if you don't have any extension, then it's bad. But anyway,
Endless Fate is like a catch-22 for me when I find it in blank pages, because on the one hand it's a good unit, but on the other hand it's, depending on what my setup is, it's actually could hurt me, in that it, you know, it does cost you a draw to play it. Right.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Blank page. I almost always regret taking blank pages, even though it's like a fun one, right?
Yeah,
it is very fun.
Yeah.
It's like if I were just trying to win, I probably would never take it.
Finally, in
And
terms of
finally, new clan.
Yeah, the only champ that I probably prefer the non-exiled variant to the exiled variant.
Yes, which is surprising because the overwhelming consensus at the beginning was Spine Chief was pretty bad,
Yep.
and Echo Right was so good.
Right.
And I think having done it, I think Spine Chief is really, really strong.
Yep. Definitely agree.
Let's start with, what's the first one?
Sorry, I don't know myself. I need to take a look at my files. The first one is here. It's the unhit one that gives you.
Oh, Infector.
Infector. I don't like Infector. Some people like really go crazy for it. I've seen this a lot. Like Hart loves it. Maybe I'm speaking for him. I remember him taking it.
Yeah.
In the tournament.
I'm back. Sorry, what are we talking
about? On to Infector. I was making a case for why I don't like Infector. I think it's the weakest of the three paths.
Infector.
See, this comes...
Generate charged echoes and get multi-strike.
It's weird because
it's a reliable way to gain charge echoes though. And it'll buff your.
I like it with Inspire units, like.
Yeah. It'll buff your Inspire units.
Yeah. I guess my argument there would be that I just would rather have Corruptor in that case if I have units on the floor with it. It's weird because I actually think it's a really good path. To me, the other two paths just eclipse it in terms of consistency, but it's hard for me to say that it's a bad path. Like, the times I've done it, it goes really well.
I like it more than Decayer if I just don't have a lot of Inspire cards. Like, I think
it or something like that.
And I think, well, it's the only path that can work with X, I think.
I think I can make them all work pretty well with eggs.
Yeah. Well, it depends on which egg. I think that Bog Deep Cocoon is kind of unplayable, but if you have one of the other two, 8 isn't so many and 5 isn't so many. I think you can make it work with any. But I do agree it's much better with egg, and it's certainly really good with what is it even called? The Bogfly egg.
The
Bogfly Chrysalis.
Bogfly Chrysalis, yeah. Bog Chrysalis.
Yeah.
With Bog Chrysalis, it's actually really good because not only do your Bogflies get there faster, they're going to scale damage the longer that they stay in Relentless. Like that combo is really strong.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good with Keeper, as Narninian mentioned. I think it's pretty good with. But I mean, how often are you going to get plus 40 out of it? That's the question, right? Like, how often do you get actually 40 charged echoes out of it?
Yeah.
Where you would just get not even plus 40, because what is it? It's plus 40 per charged echo, right? No, it's plus. What is it? What is the?
I mean, so you're talking raw damage, but like you got to think about like it has multi-strike and it provides sustain when you're talking adding like Inspire.
With Keeper, you're right.
Yeah.
Because if you talk about just raw sustain, the other two paths have more raw health. It's the least. No, which one has the least amount of health?
It's the middle path.
Corruptor has the least, right?
Yeah.
Corruptor has the least. Yeah. Decayer has the most.
Decayer has the most. But you're right. Like with a Keeper, then you're getting he's healing himself kind of every time.
It can be flexible too. Like I've flexed it into the others when, like you said, if you for some reason you have troubles generating echoes, or even if you just have like I've done Infector and Decayer, And you can go either way there. Like you can get 2 strikes with 1 decayer or 1 strike with 2 decayer. And you don't even have to, you can just plop it down and it will just do things for you without any need to give it any TLC. And you can just focus on another floor at that point.
I mean, the built-in multi-strike is like, we're comparing it to Brawler, right? Like the big upside of Brawler is that it has multi-strike, and this has, yes, it's slower multi-strike, but I think the fact that you have that with the champion path built in is pretty strong in itself. Yes, the other paths have some strong things as well. I just think it's pretty good because of that.
It's at least good. Like
Yeah.
it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I would say at least good for sure.
Yeah, and you can always flex into the other path, or other paths you can just take one. No, not really. I don't think you can take one rank. Normally it would be. I've taken 2 ranks of Infector and 1 rank of Corruptor before, like that, just for some more damage. You get your charge echoes and you get your damage on yourself and the units on the same floor. So
Right. Yeah, you're basically guaranteeing at least 10 extra damage to the whole floor each turn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. And I mean, you can't flex the other 2 into each other. That doesn't make any sense. But you can always flex Infector. I would say Infector is what makes, like, it's really good during Relentless.
Mm-hmm.
I think it becomes less good throughout the earlier, where the other 2 are consistent throughout the entire fight.
Right.
Infector trumps the others when it comes to just relentless combat.
Right. And I think that's why I prefer the other 2, is just because those other 2 come in right from the gate doing a ton of stuff. Corruptor will clear waves right from the get-go. Or sorry, Decayer.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing I'll say is Infector scales better with a lot of buffs because of the multi-strike. But
right.
Like the others don't need as much scaling.
Definitely.
So, well, I think we'll just put him at good.
Yeah.
Here. Next is what is
Is
this?
that supposed to be Corruptor, or is
I-
that supposed to be?
I'm going to guess it's Corruptor, just because the
Corruptor,
other one has a R. I'm guessing R is for Reap.
I will say, ever since Gabriot introduced me to this, I have literally never lost a run with Corruptor and a draft.
Yeah.
Like, and I've done a lot of them.
And that's kind of how
None of the other cards matter.
Yeah.
Like,
It just wins it.
Yeah, same with Sweep. You get
Yep.
Corruptor, plus you get Husk Hermit, and you're 11 life.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
Or you get Bogfly or the Bog Chrysalis, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, Chrysalis.
like those cards, you need other stuff, but draft you don't. Like literally just your starting cards in draft.
Right.
Oh, because of the reform, you mean?
Well, I mean, I guess that would have to require it to be exiled melting, but I do mean literally just draft and Corruptor and starting cards.
Because you did that was a quarantine run, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you dupe it though? You have to dupe it, right?
Dupe the drafts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have enough strikes to kill Divinity without duping it.
Yeah, you would dupe the drafts. And
I guess
maybe
if you
infuse them, yeah.
If you started with 2 though, I could see if you just add quick and multi-strike.
No, I like to have enough to like play them on other floors to get them like reformed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Corruptor is really good. It is the one that is the least sustainable in terms of like Patient can be kind of rough because and the biggest problem with Corruptor is if it dies, your floor just sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I think
Obviously, the main issue here is size, right? Like
Yes.
because it buffs per strike basically, and it takes up 3 of your 5 base pips. That is a pretty big issue.
I think early game you're often actually correct to not frontline with it. You might lose a
Correct.
few
Yep.
pyre health, but you'll be fine in relentless then. That's one thing I would say to if
Yeah,
if
all the way
it's-
through ring 3. I even if you have a good unit with multi-strike, I still think you need the corruptor damage that much.
right.
Later on, when it gets the second upgrade health, and especially the third upgrade health, you kind of have to frontline with it.
Right.
And what's nice about it is it's one of the only paths where like 4 charged echoes is enough.
Yeah.
Like you don't really need more than it. Where the others you rely on like having lots of charged echoes.
80 damage for 4 echoes, not too bad of a deal.
No, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I tend to say win game by self. I think it's one that is easy to misplay with. When I lose, it's my own problem. I don't think
I'm gonna
say
say
great.
hard disagree there. I don't think it's win game by itself by a long shot, but I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think it-
so great.
It needs another unit. Like it needs another unit to win.
And it needs sustain. It needs sustain, and it needs a unit, and it needs it needs a good unit.
I guess I just find it so likely that you'll find a good unit for it, even within the Wormkin arsenal. You have the 2 common tier or uncommon tier eggs that are pretty good with it. Granted, it makes it slower to get going, but there's so many cards that can get around that, like and even artifacts like Soul Siphon, even like Bounding Echoes, or even like an infused first or whatever it's called, at kin with the one that like adds permanent echoes. And you can put the 2 1-pip units before they hatch, and you'll either get 2 multi-strikers or just 4 flies on the floor. And if you're lucky enough to find quick, health, multi-strike, any of those combo, it's pretty hard to lose at that point. Because with the quick, they'd prevent almost all the damage coming in, other than on Divinity. But there's Shelter, there's Daze, there's a lot of options to deal with it. But yeah, I guess I can see great, because as I say that there needs to be those things to win it, which technically is not win game by itself.
Now there's another path, however.
So Decayer, number 3. Decayer has the one bane of its existence is Dregs, secondary clan.
Yeah.
Apart from that one single path, I think it's the most consistent.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's even okay with Dregs and Imps. It's easier to forget. Like I've lost because I've misplayed, but like I don't think it's even too bad, at least like the early rings, to put them in front of Decayer, and they're gonna die. And usually I don't like have more than 2 that I need to play out in a turn. So it's often not even a downside, and I feel. And by mid to late game, I think just hopefully you can remove those. But yeah, I'll agree they're not as good as the spell commons, but I think they're not that much of a huge downside.
The only reason I specifically pick out Dregs is at least with the Imps, they're doing some immediate damage, which is often, and like,
Yeah.
I feel like they block better than Dregs block, even though they have 1 health. Like, they did their job. If you play a dragon, it just dies. It didn't do anything. It literally was 0 cost, block a hit, get a charged echo. Whereas the Imps actually have some value. But yeah, I mean, in general, like Decayer was the one that, like, me personally, couldn't imagine getting it to work until you play it,
Right.
and then you realize, like,
It's busted.
this thing destroys floors.
Yep.
It just annihilates floors.
Annihilates them. Yeah, it's crazy. Even in
And
a deck that doesn't use it well, it still does a ton.
I guess the main downside is the Divinity fight. Like if you destroy if use this champ to destroy the floors and then maximize your deck to do that, it's not going to destroy Divinity by itself.
Maybe.
I've done
I
it.
flying kill Divinity with Decatur.
Yep, same.
But you probably need also the artifact that gives you an additional reap.
Well, that one actually, I mean, it's fine. The additional reap is fine. You're going from 5 to 6, which is pretty marginal. I actually
Yeah.
think that if there's any
Karuska.
case for carving Karuska, it's this. Like carving Karuska, you can. I'm convinced you could not have anything but a bunch of spells and Decatur, and if you have carving Karuska, you can win.
Or even Bog Slime.
Or Bog Slime, yeah,
Yeah.
something that will generate extra. Two, it's the number of charged echoes. I think is really the key.
Right.
So, are you thinking win game by itself?
I think it's win game by itself, borderline.
Yeah, I'd
It's
agree.
out of what we reviewed so far, it's the closest.
Yeah.
I've beaten Divinity Covenant 25 with no banner units with it, so I think it, and not even like drafts or anything.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we can put one there since there isn't anyone that is there right now.
And
And
we
that-
move on to the Exiles.
The Exiles, I have a feeling they're going to be on average
Alright.
higher.
Yes. Well, and on
Except for
average,
Wellington.
yeah, except for Wellington. Sharto Queen. What do we start with?
We start with the Imparade.
I think
So-
we're going to disagree on this one.
I think the hardest part about Sharto Queen is she's so good to mix and match.
Mm-hmm.
Like I rarely go all in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the 3 levels, it's just so hard to use both those imps is the problem. Like,
Yeah. There's honestly sometimes where I wish you could skip the champ third upgrade, because it was like I had an Apex imp on the floor and I had 2 points of imp parade, and then it offered me Imperialist and imp parade, so it's like it's actually a downgrade for me to take the
Well, you
Imperialist third.
You can skip it.
Not once it comes up.
Oh,
So-
really?
Right. So
It's
once
click and done.
yeah, it's like I wanted in that case to not take any of it, because obviously I don't want Apex Imp to die, but I also don't want those welder helpers.
Could you imagine if it was Transcendent? Like it went Queen's Implant into. I think the biggest problem with In Parade rank 3 is I just think standalone welder helpers are not good late game. They're fantastic early mid game, but
They're
like I want
they're
the,
better
I
as
want the
infusions.
essence.
Yeah,
I want the
mean,
essence. I don't want the
yeah.
unit.
Yeah, exactly. Like you need to keep every unit alive, not just your front unit. Yeah.
Yeah, and
so-
the space is also
so-
a problem.
The thing about
Yeah.
this is I like getting 2 levels of it. I feel like I think they're almost equivalent. 2 levels of Imp Parade and 2 levels of Rally are almost equivalent to me. Because you get Rage for scaling or you get hard scaling.
Yeah,
Except
but
that
that
one does the whole floor.
right,
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
So
and makes your imps free.
yes,
Yeah,
And
I mean,
provides
it
an
depends
impeachment.
on. It depends on. I mean, the downside is you might get a rage imp, and then you don't have room for it all. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's very good to have 2 levels of imp parade. I think the 3rd level is usually pretty bad.
I can make the 3rd level work more times than I can't, I would say. But
Ye-
it's not great. It's definitely not great. It's more like I was able to do it without it ruining my deck kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, depending on your cards, it becomes worse, right? So if you
Yeah.
start with fledgling imps, and you have Forever Flame, for example.
Yeah, then you don't really need it.
It becomes like problematic even sometimes if if you don't have the space for it.
Might just trigger harvests for the enemy.
Yeah.
The other part too is if you get, for example, your imp killers, right? Your sacrificial cards.
Important work.
Yeah, especially important work, but even in general,
Yeah.
like I want to play
Hornbrick.
those on my endless imps. I don't want to play those on my plate imps, and it's very common for me. Even when I do 2-floor setups, it's very common that I just have like a bunch of random welder helpers just stuck.
Yep.
And I can't get rid of them because I'm not gonna. If I have a transcend imp, if I have an infused fledgling imp, I will always play it on those.
Yep.
And they just keep stacking up and stacking up and stacking up.
And then they might trigger Pyre Wings or Harvests, and it's just sad.
And obviously, the value goes up a lot if you don't have any, like if you don't find endless, and you, like, for example, mix in the explosion path. You need a source of imps then.
Yeah. I've had it win me the game before. I mean, there was a run where like I had an Apex imp that only had Rail Beater Infusion as its only armor synergy until I went rank 3 of Imperialist or Imp Parade, and then it actually gave it a welder helper every turn.
And it's pretty good against Divinity. The problem is it's bad against Seraph, against basically all 3 Seraph or all 4 Seraphs.
Yeah.
But it's really good against Divinity because you could just play them in the top floor and they die every time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, as a general, I have to say I love Imperialist though. It's like it's so just free value, right?
And I mean, we're not talking about Imperialist right now, but like,
Or sorry,
I've
Imp Parade.
yeah. Oh, I see.
I meant Imp Parade. I said Imperialist.
Yeah, I think it's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's great.
I think it's like maybe not the rank 3. If rank 3, then maybe just good. But
Right.
just 2 ranks or even one rank. Sometimes you actually want the Queen Simpling instead, and
I find that kind of rare. Yeah.
So sorry.
Like, yeah, I find that kind of rare. I mean, maybe to fuel Imperialist.
Because, sometimes you have like endless fledgling imp and then you have a transcendent.
And you're just building up a lot of damage first. Yeah, I mean, I see that as well.
Right.
And you don't have you don't have the space to actually play fledgling imp on the same floor as your Shartail Queen.
The other one too that I actually like with rank 1 is exactly Transcendent to make it 1 cost.
Yeah.
So
so you can play multiple or whatever.
Yes, so you can play more than one, or you can do the whole, important work combo legitimately.
Right.
So then what's next? Royalty.
This is my least favorite, and I think you pointed it out already. It only scales 1 unit, and it doesn't matter if it does 500 damage. It's still going to attack once.
Right.
It also has lower base health than at least than the other paths, I think. Let me double check.
Yeah, this is one where I ran it a lot pre-DLC. I thought it was pretty good DLC or pre-DLC, but post-DLC I just don't. It's not that it's bad. It's just, to me, I would almost always want to take the other paths over it.
AoE just became so much more important.
Right. Both for killing and also AoE like buffs to your own stuff is just way better than 1 unit getting everything.
Yeah,
Especially
it has the middle level health, and actually that actually is a real factor, like for me, like comparing it to Imperialist, because Imperialist can last twice as long,
right,
if you're looking at 3 levels.
Definitely. It's also like, I don't know, the scaling, you could even argue it'll get a lot of damage if it's like it can be bad though, like if you low roll and don't find endless and you don't find Imp Parade, then you're actually not getting much rallies a lot of the time.
Yeah, unless they're melting. But
Yeah, melting. If you have reform, you'll be good. But yeah.
Yeah, so I would like say it's good because Sharktail Queen never has to do one path. It can
Right.
always do one of the other two.
Right.
So it's a great way to get some scaling if you just don't have any in your deck.
Yeah.
But it's mainly due to the other two paths being able to be mixed in.
Yeah.
I would put it at good, like, or maybe even okay. Probably
I think
okay.
I
That's
would
where I
put
would.
it okay though.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
okay, yeah. And it's weird because it's never like it's just because I would never take 3 levels of rally.
Right.
And also I think you have to pivot into one of the other two paths if you're taking the rally rank
I mean,
1.
not necessarily, because there are, like, you can do, specifically Melting Remnant, you can do tomb builds,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
You do stealth tombs.
Yeah, I mean that's I would say that's more of a like the stealth is good and the tomb builds are good.
Well, but
And
stealth, it's you also need units that can do lots of damage, and it's a unit that can do lots of damage. So it's
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Like stealth is by itself really strong, but it does scale. Like rank 3 scales pretty quickly to where you're killing a lot of frontliners fairly reliably. But in general, it doesn't do enough. You still need tons of support to kill the rest of the floor, and
But
so
I
there-
think it's suffers the same as the Wrathful Prince. It's that even if it's good, it's only hitting for 1, and you need multi-strike on it.
Yep.
yeah, that's right. And you can't fragile it. It
I
has
mean,
too much health to
I
fragile
guess
it.
the main thing is like it's a backup plan if you don't find any sources of scaling in your deck. If you don't get a flushing lamp and you don't have any other sources of scaling, it's really good scaling for 1 unit.
It's purely relentless, although you have to, like, it has to be for relentless. It's not scaling for.
Yeah.
for
Well, I
your-
mean, you could have a Transcendent with Queen Zimpling to kill floors.
that's
and
right.
that won't kill relentless. But yeah. I think that's a good spot.
And then we have the final one.
Then Imperialist.
Move it up, please.
Yeah. Love me some
Boom.
Imperialist.
It's very good. Obviously, you can't win the game by itself
Right.
because you need an imp, but it's so good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I think it's just these two. If you have just these two together, it's just I think you need both of these to actually win the game, but it's just really good.
So the one build that's the exception is 2 rank royalty, 1 rank imperialist reform builds.
Yeah.
That's the strongest Sharktail Queen build, but you have to have reform and you have to have melting remnant.
I mean, I would say even with Reform though, Imperialist is pretty strong because then you don't have to like kill it on another floor.
No, I'm just saying that like in terms of like you can actually have it solo if you specifically have
Oh yeah.
royalty 2 and you have reforming imps, because it will kill the imps no matter how much burnout they have, and it will scale to be able to defeat bosses. Like that's the big thing, is that you get the scaling from royalty, but that is such a very specific build that it's not really worth discussing in general. In general, Imperialist, I find rank 3 is almost never worth it. The extra damage, you go from 40 to 60, but the 40 is enough. The 40 is already what you need to kill every backliner that you need to kill. And so for me, I pivot every time. No matter what it is, I will not take rank 3.
I think
Yeah.
it's 20, 30.
Yeah,
thought
I
it
mean,
was-
I do like the base starting health in case you're relying on a card solution for like divinity or something. But yeah, I think 2 levels is enough for that.
I've done 3 on Imperialist a lot just because it's only going to be because I don't find Imp Parade. Usually a lot of times with Shardtail, it's not part of my. It might not be part of my main floor. If I didn't find Fledgling Imp, let's put it that way. And in that case, royalty probably doesn't get me anything, and I'm better off just getting that extra health so it survives a few more turns and clears a few more waves. But yeah, it's not like super great to go Imperialist 3. It's not like you're never foaming at the mouth to be like, ooh, I'm Imperialist 3, now I get my third rank power spike, right?
Yeah.
It is also oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say this is, I would say, top tier of the champion path for one reason alone, and that is Welder Helper is borderline. It's so hard to use without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's also simultaneously one of the best and worst units to put quick on is Imperialist Shark Tycoon. It's really good. It's really good when you don't care about your imps doing damage, and it is so frustrating when you actually need like one hit from an imp and then you can't do it. But yeah, quick is amazing on it because then you just never have to worry.
Yeah, then you don't need survivability on your imps for like AoEs. Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on Ring 1 if you see Imperialist? For me, I lock it in every time. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, usually. I'm trying to think of a scenario where I wouldn't, and it's
Would
not
you
a lot.
pick Imparade or Imperialist?
I would pick Imperialist.
Yeah.
It really depends for me. If it is, if you start with the tail, I would take Imparade because it's a guaranteed extra draw every turn.
Yeah,
that's true.
And if you get double summons, I would take Imparade.
Yeah. And Melting Remnant, I would probably take Imperialist.
Yes. Yeah.
Could be good. Good argument to go Artifact first with Shardtail.
Yeah.
Get some information there. I just feel like in general, Imperialist has such a strong Ring 1. Like I can take every single trial. I probably won't even take a single bit of pyre damage. Like
Ring 3 is rough.
Right. And then I've locked in my point of Imperialist. Like if I were to get stuck Imperialist 3 or Imp Parade 3, I'd rather be Imperialist 3, I think, just because you're guaranteed to have an endless imp be playable every turn. Even just the existence of Transcend Imp. I mean, if you think about it, it's not that unlikely to hit a single rare. You probably won't hit them in over half your games, but you'll hit them in a significant amount. And the fact that Transcend Imp plus Queen's Imp exists, and if you find Endless on it, with a point of Imperialist, you should have basically won the game because you can play it every turn then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Transcend Imp was a champion, it would be on the top one.
Well, I mean, that's true of a lot of the rare units. Bounty Stalker would be there. Apex Imp would be there. Morsel Mage would be there. There's a lot of that. If you could start with them in your, I mean, that's also why that one challenge, expert challenge, is sometimes easier than the actual normal game.
Or the Dante one, yeah.
No, not the Dante one.
Or no champ, no problem.
Yeah, because you get no triggers.
Oh yeah, no champ, no problem is definitely easier.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely no problem, all right.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if no champ, no problem without double triggers is better for a lot of clans.
I mean, over Rector Flicker maybe, like,
or over Prince, probably a lot. Yeah.
Next up,
Rodenton.
Gabriel's favorite.
Blood.
Quick.
I need some Dramamine. I'm getting nauseous.
Well,
yeah,
he's just too
30
fat.
health. 30 health is like 30 health.
And he's fat. He's so fat.
Yeah.
And quick is like, let's move that down already. Thank you.
I think we can start with here, and then we can move it down if necessary.
I guess my main problem is like it technically can be good on paper, but this is a clan that has quick tome. This is a clan that has Animus' speed infusion. This is just a game where you can find a quick upgrade at Merchant of Steel. Do you really need your whole floor quick? Most of the time, I find no. Most of the time, in the case of like a Shattered Shell, for example, I don't want anybody else quick. I only want it quick.
Yeah, and also spikes is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would make it work is if Hidden Passage was in Awoken rather than Hellhorn.
Yeah.
The incentive to multi-strike, or the incentive to overstack is there, but the only overstack possible card is so bad to take. You just can't. And like that's the case. So for me, if I go Hellhorn, I can go Predator 3 and I don't stress.
Yeah.
I just put a bunch of demons on the floor, ascend them all, and I have a good time. But apart from that specific scenario, it's just not that great.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is that Multi-Strike 2 competes with so many better units to buff.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like, it's not that good a unit to use all of your damage buffs on, because he doesn't have sweep. Yes, you can mix paths, but then he only has multi-strike one. And so I would almost put him at bad.
I think he's okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him all the way to bad. I think it's okay.
It's swingy.
But yeah, it's.
I like that the path exists in case you have a really good unit that can fit on the floor. You can add quick, and it's just like, okay, you're spending a lot of resources, 3 capacity, to get quick to that unit, but maybe you just didn't see it, and you can get another multi-strike on that unit or something.
I think you guys mentioned this before, but like Wellington is really good at clearing waves, but not really good at just dealing with bosses.
Yeah.
One thing that really pisses me off is that Eel will cleanse its quick.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the dumbest interaction.
Yeah, what's the point of an enchant if it's not like... It's like you'd think it'd be like just present.
It's there. It's ever present.
Right.
But no.
What will cleanse the quick?
Because if I
Eel Gorgon cleanses quick that comes from...
It's a one-time buff for anybody that's on the floor, so it's cleansed. It works the same way with like channelers. You can cleanse the spikes, but still...
It's annoying though, because if I let's say I descend a unit off the floor, they no longer have quick.
Yes.
So why does Eel Gorgon not just get quick if it's like something that's always there?
It should be every turn to all units. They have to code it that it applies quick to all units on the floor at the beginning of turn.
Right. Not that Eel Gorgon needs buffs necessarily, but it's just like an annoying interaction.
In that case, it does though, because that is not intuitive and very irritating.
Right.
But no, I think we're in a good spot with it being okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But, yeah.
I agree. I will say some people swear by it. Some people swear by Predator, but it's hard for me to.
It's nice built-in way to scale. I guess that's where a lot of these champions are. Is like you can find better ways to scale, but this is a more guaranteed way.
Right.
I mean, always. There are always. It's a combo piece, but it's not like it's the most important piece of the combo.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sweep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's very good. I think it's good compared to. I don't think it's great. I think it's good.
I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's bad.
Oh, I think
really?
it's good.
I think it will lose you a lot of runs. If you wouldn't. So
I mean, it's a skill. It's a skilled path that if you don't play it correctly, it will lose you runs.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that, but you can use it in two ways that I think make it good. One is, I guess, never Nathaniel used this term earlier as a not a goalkeeper, but like I guess a prevent, like allowing you to set up your floor. It'll die. It has a lot of health, but eventually it'll die, and then you've set up your floor. The other thing is, you know, preventing leaks. You'll never have to worry about leaks. It's a built-in sweep in a clan that has sweep, but in a unit that has ways to scale and a lot of health, and it has a lot of health.
It's also the main piece of the most reliable build in the game, which is the rat trap. So I can never put it to bad though. I think if you're right, it can lose you the game, but it's not what lost you the game. Like I think Nightangel said it right. I think it has a high skill cap to use it properly, but I wouldn't say it's what lost you the game. I think if you don't build around it properly, yes, it can become a detriment, but then you build around it properly.
See, I think that particularly on Chased, if you don't have a good way to deal with Pyre Wings, it can pretty much lose you the game. I've had it happen, at least for me.
You mean just having multiple Ember Drains stacking up and...
Well, yeah, it's like basically you'll lose all your Ember if you can't kill the Pyre Wings, and then it's like then the units start stacking up, and then it's like you never can get Ember again. So if you can't kill the Pyre Wing in 2 hits, maybe even Chased is a bad example. I'd say even Pyre Wings, the Ring 7 is a better example, because in those cases sometimes you had a deck that could probably deal with most things, but you can't deal with some of those waves where there's 2 tanks in front of Pyre Wings.
Yeah.
And then it's like...
Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain.
Right, right. And you never have Ember past that. That's probably the main one, I would say. But even... I guess... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think... this is one of the big problems I have with Root as like the Entangle card.
Yeah.
I think Entangle card has a similar type of effect where like you use it to try to stall and the stalling just kills you because you're often stalling high health things that then block you from killing more important things.
Right.
I think what pushes it over the edge for me is sweep. I mean, Narninian, you mentioned it. It's the clan of sweep. At the same time, you don't always have Husk Hermit, or you don't always have Shattered Shell, and being able to have sweep that is guaranteed is pretty valuable. I mean, sweep is just always good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess there are edge cases, but I feel like there are a lot of edge cases with a lot of champions, and
right.
I wouldn't judge it around those edge cases. I think the standard is it's okay, and that's kind of where I would say it sits, maybe okay, good. But man, the rat trap build is so good. It's so so stupidly good. So it's hard for me.
Rat trap build?
Rat trap build is Molten Encasement plus Wellington, and you win.
Yeah, I mean, you do need some damage scaling, otherwise you're gonna get people walking past you. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I think we can. So, do you want to move up to the good?
I guess it's okay. I thought, yeah.
Just.
I think it's okay, and
it
is one where you only want one rank, no matter what. It's never worth taking multiple ranks.
Mainly because of this next path. It's so weird how that.
You know what?
I think Quick could screw you sometimes. That you might want to take Strangler just so you actually get health.
Well, especially the rat trap build, but
right.
I mean, Quick and the Quick and Sweep Predator and this it's these two paths like come. I think it's a usual mixed path options.
Yeah, it's the way to kill waves without taking damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that Wildington's one of the only champions where I would be totally fine taking rank 1 of all 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Doesn't gain huge benefits from the additional ranks.
So then we can talk about Thornlord.
Yeah.
Preserve Thorns Lord.
Yeah, Preserve Thorns Lord. It's really good in Incant, and it's really mediocre in all the rest.
Yep.
It's actually the only one I like to see anymore, if I'm being honest. I don't love it, but at least it grants me a full hand turn 2, and that's basically all I get from it. Which
It's
to
the
me,
highest health one path, right?
highest health, yeah.
I think it's for me. Like I used to really like it. I used to like really like this. The incant it's and you get extra draw, but right now with the last divinity, it's not. I don't.
Kind of slow.
I don't like
It's kind of.
it.
It's kind of
it's
slow
slow.
scaling.
Yeah,
too
it's
slow.
scaling's. I hate the scaling. It's so bad. Like even 3
It's
ranks.
ironically though, it's ironically the best card to play with Root Seeds because you play Root Seeds on something else and it actually benefits.
True.
But no, I don't disagree. I think you cannot rely on it as anything other than a tank that does a tiny bit of damage and grants you a really good turn 2.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think I just have found more success with Wildington not using him on my floor. So I'm like pessimistic here, but I think that's why I like the Thornlord, just because I put it down. Yeah, and I you know, if I have a Bounding Echoes in my opener, I can then play it after that and get all that inspiration gas, or even like a Stygian, I can get some incant gas. But typically, I just don't want those 3 pips dedicated to such a poorly statted unit for 3 pip. I'd rather just fit like either a 2 pip units depending on my situation, or even just a 2 pip and a 1 pip. Like imps, for example, I'd rather just put imps with some other units, or just set up an incant floor of proper incanters like sirens or whatnot. Yeah, and or proper inspiration type units.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny. Like all these levels of Wildington are okay, but Root Seeds is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Root Seeds is really good. You know what Root Seeds is really good with is Wormkin.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Really, really good with Wormkin.
Yeah.
And Stygian, yeah.
Yeah, Stygian.
It's also really that's actually one thing about Awoken is both starter cards are like pretty good. And I don't know.
With the exception of like Umbra and Hellhorn, like Restore is not that good, but
the worst thing about Root Seeds is that it's not Restore when you get rejuvenation based units.
Right.
Yeah.
And Awoken Hall is a pretty good unit. Or
so is
Steel Singer.
Yeah, the big man himself, Steel Singer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few where I try a Steel Singer with Root Seeds.
It can
sad.
work, but it's brutal.
Right. Have to do things
All right.
like Glimmer on Holdover.
It's time for Soul Guard then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think this has
Speaking
gone
about
up.
unplayable paths.
Is that the Frostbite? Man?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, see,
All right.
I got some disagreements there.
No, that's the it's the dire channel. That's the dire.
Oh, see, now this one I say is unplayable.
I don't think it's unplayable.
I like this one.
I feel like there's no reason to pick it over Titan Channel.
I would agree with that, but I would pick it over Frost Channel.
Yeah, it scales better than Titan Channel, but like, do you need it? I don't know.
I don't even know that it does.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, like I guess my arguments with Titan Channel is you can get around the Ember Drain, which is it's worth something. I mean, that's a whole Ember turn 2. You have way more health, and for the shards that you unlock it at, Dire Channel's not even close to the Titan Channel damage yet. It's basically
It's
only
also
beats it like past a certain point, right?
Titan Channel also does really well in the Diligence, where the other two struggle.
Yeah.
So Dire Channel, it can work in some very specific setups. It does have a quasi multi-strike built in.
Yeah, but if you count that, then it's not actually doing a regular strike that's any good, right? So
Yeah.
it's not.
And-
So it's hard to consider that.
Well, so where it can be really good is in Hellhorn Rage builds.
Yeah.
So if you have Hellhorn Rage builds, you can add Rage to it. It's actually pretty good because you get the incant plus you get the Rage damage and it multi-strikes. But 2 strikes does not a build make.
Right.
You need more than that, or you need AoE. And the biggest problem with Dire Channel is its health total is so bad, even all the way up to rank 3. And so for me, I've always done, if I even go Dire Channel, I do rank 1 Titan Channel with it, just so it doesn't die.
Yeah.
And it gets, and rank 1 of Titan Channel is really good. It's 50.
And obviously, there are exceptions. Like, if you have sustained covered otherwise, like just having I'll take 3 levels of Dire Channel occasionally, but I agree. It's usually not the way to go.
I guess my main problem too is like it's hard for me to justify floor space for Dire Channel because every other incanter would just be better there. Like
Normally,
Siren.
I agree. I think that if you're playing Dire Channel, then you are most likely putting him in the back. So any backline incant unit, Siegen unit with the incant, it's good. It's much better than the Dire Channel.
Yeah.
And the worst part is you don't want big frontline burst in the backline.
Right.
You want that on your frontliner,
right,
so that your sweep and your backliners can clear the backline. And that's also kind of annoying. Is like you put Dire Channel in the back, and it's like doing 200 damage to the third
15.
unit, and then you have 2 units behind that kill your pyre.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also
you do 200 damage to a 15 health unit because that's
what's in the front, and then yeah.
It's a sad situation.
Also, I can't remember. Does Trample work with Dire Channel?
Nope.
No, not the action.
I didn't think so.
No.
Neither
not
that
much.
or multi-strike also doesn't.
Which irritates me because it does work with Shadow Eater.
Right.
I don't understand why the action trigger doesn't. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
So would you say it's bad? Would you say it's bad?
I would say it's bad.
I say trash.
I mean, I say
I'd rather have Reaper.
Interesting. I would say it's bad. I don't think
Reaper.
I would rather have it in than Reaper for sure. And part of that is just the clan, but like
Yeah.
Oh, you think it's trash?
bad, but I know you really want.
It should probably go. It should probably go bad. I mean, it's.
I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
I'm being facetious. It's probably better than Reaper. maybe the end of bad.
There we go.
Yeah.
Frost Channel.
Okay.
Now we talk about trash tier.
Now we can just move that down to trash tier. I mean, I enjoy my runs where it works.
I think it's not that bad as it's a replacement to Titan Sentry, and I think if you don't,
I don't think it is. I don't think
No.
it's a replacement.
Titan
The problem with
better because
Titan
you can put
Sentry,
endless on it.
Titan Sentry, you plop it down and you're done. This one you have to cast like 10 times.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on what you want from it, though.
Floor. If you're playing
Yeah.
can floor, you probably need a tank in the front, anyways.
So
you don't need to actually pick up a tank, and you just have this guy.
I think it's worse than Dire Channel.
I think it's worse than
Oh,
Dire
yeah.
Channel. And so here's the thing, though. This is the same caveat. If you are not playing Covenant 25 Divinity, it's amazing. It's one of the best paths for non-divinity.
Pre-divinity, it was the best path. I think all of us thought of it that way. Like,
right.
But divinity does too much damage, and frostbite is so bad against divinity, it doesn't work.
I've tried 2 ranks of the frost channel and 1 rank of titan channel, and to give it more health. I think it works fine, but I guess it's not really the.
I'll say
Wouldn't it
this.
be better to do 1 and 2 though? Wouldn't it be better to go 1 rank and 2 ranks of titan channel to get better stats?
So I'll say this.
That's
I just like, as we were doing this discussion, I did a random, and I just won with Soul Guard Frost Path, but that was because I had a Guardian Stone. I think that's the exception. With a Guardian Stone, I think it's pretty good.
The only issue I have with it is it's not like, it is good, but it's still not going to carry your run.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I don't feel like it was doing enough damage to support it versus a different path.
See,
What's crazy?
Actually, no, you guys go ahead. I need to look something up really quick.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, the one thing that surprised me is I thought that Reap would be on par with Frostbite and just really, really bad. And it's not that they aren't affected the same way. Like, Frostbite is, I would say, much better in small doses than Reap, where I think Reap you need a lot before it like becomes like really, really good. But like having lots and lots and lots of Frostbite actually isn't that necessary. You can have a little bit of Frostbite and it's as good as having a lot of Reap. Does that make sense? Like, specifically talking about high health and bosses. But like you get 20 Frostbite on a unit and across 3 floors, it's like pretty good. It's really just divinity that it all falls apart.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just divinity though, because it's the
higher damage you get across the board because of shards.
Yeah, like it's also like sustain is rough because you need to get hit to do your damage, and things do a lot of damage, and you don't have a lot of health. So
yeah.
So
I think I think it would be a much better tank would be like the Titan channel or
you know what I would really like? Maybe it's just crazy. I would like it is a flat amount of Frostbite, and then it's scaled health on shards instead.
That could work.
So
that would probably be
5,
better.
10, 20. 5, 10, 20. And then, or even like if it's just 10, it's 10 at all ranks, and it scales 1 health, and then it scales 3 health, and then it scales 5 health per incant.
Yeah.
That I could see being really strong, even into divinity.
Right. I would like that. So I would put it at good personally. I've had pretty good results with it since the last few months of playing. My thoughts on it are that it's always going to do something for me, even if on the low end of that it's just clearing the backliners on like 2 waves. But at that point, in that situation, I'm not playing it on my main floor, and I can just put it down, get maybe 2 or 3 incants, and a full rank of cold channel is still going to kill the backliners of wave 1 through 2, maybe 3, depending on the ring.
I just think that's a huge opportunity cost. Like if you are giving up your champion to basically like do a glimmer, like I think that's rough.
Maybe, but if I compare to say Dire, I guess I'm never taking it over Dire Channel for the reason of looking at that low, the low roll there where it's just not on my floor. Dire Channel won't do anything at all for me. At least Cold Channel will clear those waves, but I think even on top of that, when I have a build that utilizes Cold Channel on my main floor, I think it still crushes everything in the game. Now that obviously needs defense, but a lot of clans have some big stuff there. Like Awoken's the most straightforward, just with heals, but there's a few, like I thought Umbra was bad with it. I don't know so much anymore. Like feeding it morsels, particularly if you have Feast or Shroud Spike, can be pretty insane. You can also give it Lifesteal to get it. Usually, if you're scaling it with morsels, it gets attack as well. At that point, you can flex a Titan channel in, get 40 attack at 4 shards, and then it can heal a lot back with Immortal Trade. So there's a lot of options that actually make Cold Channel still work, I think. And as I've had it carry a lot of runs for me recently. Still agree that on Divinity it's not as good, but it's still it basically still clears all the waves, and then in Relentless it will still crush. I guess that's my argument for Cold Channel.
I think the skill floor lifted quite a lot, and that's probably
Right.
where for me, where I'm only playing on average like 1 to 2 games a day, and that's like when I'm doing heavy. So I probably just need to play with it more. I've had so many bad experiences that I like just kind of by default think, okay, it's going to be another bad experience. I'm going to go with the
Yeah,
more reliable.
Yeah,
And
but
I also think I've had really good runs with Dire Channel, so I think it's I probably just lack of experience.
right.
I think it's better than Dire Channel. That it like because it does clear the backline, and you don't need as many backline targeting spells as you would if you're taking Dire Channel. And if you're not getting Titan Channel, then and just get these two, then I mean I would just take the Frost Channel. So are we putting it that
I would
Okay.
agree to okay. I would agree to okay. I think I need to play with it more.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. I
And
just
then-
think against the patient and the temperate health is rough.
And with diligent scaling is rough.
True.
And chased, I guess chased still is okay, but yeah. Anyway,
Chase the frostbite goes away every turn.
Right. Purify. There might be. I think there's a certain amount of shards you can keep it under to prevent Purify and Chased, but it's pretty low.
140, I believe.
140,
If I
yeah.
remember looking at the spreadsheet. I think it was 140.
Pretty rare for me
Alright,
to
I'll
be
be right
under
back.
that.
Okay, so then
Titan
last is Titan Channel. Even though Titan Channel is good, it's still not great. The best thing about Titan Channel is that it's straightforward and it's got a freaking lot of stats for a space, but it can't carry you other than it's a sustain. It can carry you through sustain, but you still need a lot behind it in order to win. But man, it's a lot of health on a unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you it takes a while to actually activate it though at rank 3. So that can sometimes be a downside, but it may not matter too much if you have card draw and you have enough Ember or cost reduction to play all your cards.
It's probably why it's a little bit easier for me for exactly those reasons. I almost still by default take draw. Not always.
Yeah.
I'll take capacity and Ember sometimes, but normally take draw, and I cost reduce everything. So like getting to 15, that's you think by turn 3 normally, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing top floor and you need to get to 15, that's 5 per turn. Like that for me has never really been a big problem.
Especially with Spell Chain, I feel also helps things.
Honestly, the worst thing about Soul Guard is that it's freaking starter card discards, which is really irritating.
I'm starting to really like Forgone Power. I think when you go double draw, it's nice as an option if you don't find good low cost incants or artifacts that help you play out the higher cost incants. It is annoying, but I think a lot of the time it becomes an advantage. Especially if you're just going all in on an incant build, I feel.
And sometimes you do get the discard synergies offering
Yeah, crypt builders and whatnot.
cards.
Yeah, but for every time that I have foregone powered a foregone power when I had 2 offerings in the deck, or 2 offering cards in my hand.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's similar to Plink, that it's a really feels bad starter card, and I almost think that if they were to swap, would they even want to swap? I don't know if Tethys would be bad with foregone as well.
I feel like there'd be less reason to go conduit at the ring 1, maybe.
Yeah, unless you got some good damage spells in your starter hand.
Right.
But man, Frozen Lance would, I think, be better with Soulguard, because there's so much value in just dumping spells. But yeah, it's hard. But yeah, Titan Channel just.
See, I look at everything in our good tier, and I feel like I would put Titan Channel in the great, just because I think it provides more value than that tier usually provides me. It's rare for me that I would ever have it not be a pretty good piece of my deck, a full Titan Channel.
I also think that one Titan Channel is almost, in my opinion, I think it's mandatory to flex into the other 2 paths. 1 rank. The amount of stats you get out of 1 rank of Titan Channel is crazy in both paths. You just have 50 damage. Congrats.
Yeah.
I think it's also stupid that it has more stats than Burn Bright. I also don't understand that at all. At rank 1.
At all ranks, really.
Yeah. At a much easier or much lower requirement. But anyway, yeah.
It also, I think it's worth. I think it's a significant advantage also that you get around Ember Drain guaranteed top floor.
Yep. And the fact that it doesn't get affected by Temperance Sap.
Right.
When it comes out, it doesn't get affected by anything, like any of those early negative effects. So it also doesn't get affected by the positive effects, so you don't get all of your artifact benefits, but still.
Yeah, but the thing is that he still only does 1 hit, so there is that, and you do need units behind him.
Yes.
I suppose even on that front, though, I think it beats Dire Channel significantly because it is technically a hit versus like an action. You can still apply like Furnace Tap to it in an Ember Train build, or even like Umbra Stone, or it also benefits from melee weakness. So if you have like a Rail Beater or a Force Contamination, it can benefit from that, whereas Dire Channel just can't. But those are probably edge cases, admittedly.
It is the single worst card to reform in the game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a fun one. Though I will say none of them are particularly great with reform.
No. Soulguard has a bad time.
I guess Chill, the Frost Path is okay to reform, but
treat it like a endless Frost Shark at that point, basically. I can see that.
Yeah, I would make the case. I don't think that it should lose shards on death. I don't think that there would be enough advantage if Soulguard kept its shards. I don't think it would make it overpowered.
Yeah, I think if it kept shards on death, then like these 2 paths would be actually much better.
They'd be good or great.
I'd be fine with that as well if they did the same to Devourer of Death.
Yes.
I feel like it wouldn't be that OP if it just kept its stuff. It's not like it's. I think it'd be more fun to just have that option, right?
I think if they did that, they'd have to probably tone down the scaling.
Yeah, maybe 5.
But then I think Yeah, exactly. But no, that would be a good change. I would like it that if it kept shards on death.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
anyway,
I could see the argument that like on endless it just clears the entire waves past a certain point, but I guess my counter argument are there's a lot of endless units that kind of do that already.
yeah, that's exactly what I
So
was thinking.
either scale them all back or let that one have some fun too.
Okay, so we're
Alright.
done with Soul Guard.
Primordium?
How do you even judge these paths?
Now this is a tough
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Primordium is
Has anyone ever gone full stalwart?
you can,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's the right decision sometimes.
in Melting Remnant, it's really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Melting or
Formed
awoken. Like
maybe Wormkin.
And-
There's a lot of flat echo transfer and
Stats.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. These three paths are really. It's you can mix them. You can go 3 levels. Really flexible.
Another one that I think would actually benefit from all three paths, if you could, because I think rank 2 and 3 in almost every case, except for Stalwart Snack, but rank 2 and 3 are not great.
Of
Like for any of the paths, the only one that benefits is Stalwart Snack, because like
I would say rank 3 aggressive gets a good spike.
But you get the damage. You also get the damage 2 damage shields for the rank 2 of the.
yeah, I mean it's okay, but the biggest benefit to the first path of Superfood is the health. Like going from 3 to 10 health is like huge.
Pretty big, yeah.
And then
The effect.
I would rather get Stalwart Snack because I think it's easy to get damage shield on it. There's so many cards that you can just put something onto it. Armor, like you just get armor, 10 armor, and then it's good. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the damage shield is okay. I think it was better pre DLC. I think post DLC, the 2 damage shield rarely is the difference maker.
I think if you got to go top, it could make sense just to survive the first few sweep attacks.
I think this champion is probably the hardest to evaluate on its own. On its own, because like you have stuff like Wretch that would change the value extremely.
Yes.
On which paths are better.
I might argue if I went aggressive, I don't see huge reasons to flex out of it, because the math just doesn't work out. Like,
yeah,
the math doesn't work out if you have no buffs.
Right,
exactly.
That's true.
It's aggressive is the best if exactly that scenario. It is the best when you have no stat buffs at all and no other buffs.
Right. Or I guess reasons to gorge, maybe if you have like an Umbra unit or something.
Like it's really good with the robot. Like double robot with aggressive is fantastic. And that's kind of the cases where I use it, is when I have something that multi-strikes and I just need damage as quickly as possible.
Right.
I think Superfood certainly has the highest high out of all three paths.
It's the most fun too.
I mean, it's the best one to go with the Ember Drain deck.
It's also the worst one to go into Temperament with.
I guess aggressive has the highest floor.
Yes. So it's
I
hard.
don't know.
It's hard for me to judge. I think all of them are pretty good. I think that Superfood. I would edge out Superfood just because even the floor of Superfood isn't terrible.
Yeah, I'd almost say the floor of Superfood is at least equal to aggressive or better. But that could just be playstyle. If I get stuck, like there's times with aggressive I can't play at top, so now I have to do it mid or bottom, and that can be rough. Like in that seed that we saw, the one that
true.
the Never Give Up one, like
I guess
then-
I hadn't considered divinity there. Yeah, aggressive dies to divinity.
All of them do.
Yeah,
All of them except for specifically
superfood.
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 And even with superfood, it, you know, I don't know. It's hard.
But if you're building superfood, you're building towards just him surviving the hit from divinity, and then you have divine shields or damage shields in your deck to add to primordium. Like you would build toward it. So
I think superfood probably belongs at the fronter end of great, and the other two would be in good.
I would
Yeah, okay.
probably put aggressive in great as well, even with the somewhat potentially bad floor. I feel like on maybe average is the wrong word. I feel like I'll just throw out a number, like 75% or more of your runs, aggressive is just insanely good and will guarantee a win. So it's hard for me to say it's not great.
I'm fine to put it like at the front of good. I definitely
Yeah.
think it's better than Architect, for example. I think
Right.
it's better than most of the sentient paths. It's just, I would put Stalwart Snack is situational. It has the potential to be really, really strong, specifically in buff and reform decks. But in every other case, I find it to be worse than having
More-
more.
Yeah, it's more of a supporting the other two paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so everyone agree with this? So
Yep.
yes, so superfood, aggressive here, and then Stalwart Snack.
Next is
Little
Little
Fade.
Fade.
Little fade.
I think
Well, this is why I put
Win gave us. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing though. I think we might disagree on this a little bit, because I think the problem is, I think the best path is, I don't know. I'm torn. I think all three paths are great, but I don't think any. I mean, I think the ones that can win by himself don't. I don't know. I think an average run.
each of them can situationally win by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are times when I would pre DLC Firelight was the best. I don't think it is the best. I think it is often the strongest, but I also think that there are cases where Eternal is better, and there are cases where
I think, ironically, I think Eternal is more consistent now. So it does one thing great. It doesn't kill everything though. It kills the front. It kills the front unit without any effort at all.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's something valuable about a unit that just gets in the way every turn, but still does what it needs to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like even like for the Reap Spine Chief, he's not. You still need like units. Like you still need like other cards. But it's not technically winning. He's not technically winning by himself. But I think it's the same can be said with the Little Fate path. They are very consistent in that they can the Eternal Flame and the Firelight, they can win the game for you.
So ironically, the only one of the paths that can truly solo is Icarus, but it is so inconsistent.
Yeah, so I would put Endless and Great.
Yeah.
I put Firelight there as well.
Firelight is the closest to winning the game by itself, because it can do it with any unit. I mean, obviously it's not literally by itself, but it is. There's so many units that it can do it with, except for Ring 1.
I think it would go into this tier, win game by itself.
I don't think it's as consistent as Decayer, because Decayer, what puts Decayer over Firelight is that Decayer is good rings 1 through 3, and Firelight is so bad ring 1. It is so terrible ring 1, unless you specifically have Burnout Extension.
Or a draft.
Or addition.
Or a
reform.
draft or something, but like...
And you draw it. Like, that's the main thing. You have to draw it.
But you reform. You can reform your the train search and
The problem is the timing. The timing
The
is
5
always
card draw. The
so
5 card
awkward.
draw is the worst. Is the bad part. Yeah.
And you only have four. You only have four waves, or not even 4 waves. You have 2 waves, and then you have your boss wave, and that's it. You just don't have time to build up what you need. But yeah, I mean, once Little Fate gets going, once Firelight gets going, it bulldozes everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the unit. Even Train Steward is fine after you get some buffs on them.
yeah, I think if you're taking Firelight, then sometimes you do have to take some power damage, but
Or skip the trial, or
but it usually it's not like it's not game ending, it's not run ending. Like you can still take the trial and take some power damage. But so so you lose some points, but
I would say with Firelight, it's one of the ones where you actually don't need to take early shards at all.
Right.
Like, you just coast until the mid game, and then dump. Once you get to rank 2, everything smooths out, and you're going to be fine.
It's less about the rank 2. It's more about the removing all the junk from your deck. That is not
and also,
reformed.
just the battles last longer. You have more time to build up stats.
Yeah.
And then I would put Icarus in good. I don't think it's great.
Yeah,
If you
swinging.
roll into it's so demoralizing.
Yeah.
It's just like so dependent on your first 3 rings and what like cards you have. Like if you have damage shield card in your starting deck, amazing. If you don't, and there's no invasion trial, awful. Like,
or Heaven's Priests. It's like you could, even without the invasion trial, you might get Clergyman or the Hasters ring 2, which can get you there, but often enough there's no Clergyman trial, there's no like a troop like Heaven's Priest where there's like one backliner that hits you and the rest is just tanks and healers. Like you'll get a spike there.
Yeah.
Or 2 spikes or whatever it is, rank 1.
I will say though that into data list it's like almost an auto pick because every single data list is really, really good with Little Fate. But anyway, that's and it has the if you have Awoken, it's there's so much.
Awoken has even cycle of life, like adaptive mutation, spikes, artifacts,
Crucible,
steel enhancer, like even stuff like that.
Rembalash.
And then like Umbra's pretty good too with damage shields. Like even Hellhorn is pretty good if you have armor cards to start with.
The nice thing about Hellhorn too is that you can torch it. You can torch it and reform it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can do that turn 1, and then you can get some more than 1 unit.
Or torch enemies to get the thresholds.
Yes, exactly. So, go ahead.
I think Stygian's the only one where you might not get good synergies. Like Guardian Totem's probably your best there, or Clever Saps.
Yeah, it's questionable though.
But every other clan has a ton for it.
The one thing about Stygian though is you have 2 sweep units as well, like Awoken. So, or you mean specifically for
gathering spikes for Icarus,
yeah, that's right. Guardian Stone tends to be pretty good. Yeah, but you're right. It's like Stygian is like designed to. It's so weird. It's designed to like avoid your units taking and doing damage.
Right. And
roll over 6 spells and sap them, and I don't know.
Right. It's also like pretty hard for me to not take Firelight with Stygian when you got 2 sweepers.
Yeah.
Like
yes. Yeah. Okay, on to Echo Right.
Yeah, final champion. We have. Sorry. We have armor first.
It's really, really good in very specific types of decks. In certain decks, it's better than the other two paths, but I think it's very inconsistent compared to the other two paths.
I think
It has a much higher skill floor than the other two.
it's pretty good, specifically combined with one level of repeater.
Yeah.
I actually don't like it with repeater. I think it's better without. I think it's better with eggs than it is with repeater. But the main reason why is I think it's the single best user of Wormkin etchings and broken memories. The broken memories combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't get those cards.
No, you're right. That's why I say like the main reason I don't love it with one rank of the return is because I don't think it does enough at rank 2 once per turn. But I mean, I guess it's not terrible. What is it? It's at rank 2. It does 8. Is that right, or is it 10? I think it's 8.
Yeah, it's so this, I would say, if you don't get broken memories or etchings or rancor repeater, you can make a card like Ambient Charge or Total Recall do some serious work with this path. It's just not something that feels good because it's like you're burning out your deck, but technically it gets you, you'll never die at that point. So it's like, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it also pisses me off that it doesn't work with wing clippings.
Right. Yeah, wing clippings is not something I take in Wormkin much because of how anti-synergistic it is with like every etched trigger.
Yeah.
But it's similar to Aggressive Edible to me. It's one that's boring to me, kind of, but it's technically very good. I'd be tempted to put it in Great, but if I can find any reason to do Repeater or Martial Lord, I will.
I would put it at the back end of good. I don't think it's as good as some of the things that are in there. I don't think it's as good as Primordium. I don't think it's as good as the Sentient. I don't think it's as good as Architect. But I think it's okay, and it has some highs. Like, it definitely has some highs. If you can get a Wormkin Etchings build rolling, like, it's really, really strong. You're looking at, like, 60 armor per turn plus, which is just nuts, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with this is that it gives you armor on all your units, so you don't really need to worry about sustain ever. If you have this, so just and then the edge. I think consume cards are more common than people think, and
yeah, I mean, I personally, for consistency, would put it closer to Great, but it's consensus.
I think I would put it like up, like towards the top here.
That's good.
Yeah.
Then we have
or the consume return.
Oh, really? This is my favorite path, but
that's because you're boring.
I'm not boring.
That's my favorite as well. I suppose before we get to Martial Lord, we should note that there is a specific situation that I've had happen a lot where you're not offered Martial Lord and you have no consumes, and that's not a fun ring one for either Shellsmith or Repeater.
No, it's not. Repeater is really good. The only problem I have with Repeater is, how do I say it? Like,
it's not Martial Lord. Is that
no. The only problem I have with Repeater is if you don't get the right consume cards, the ones you get back are like there's some really crappy consume cards that you can get, and so then you're either having to remove them from your deck and hoping for something better. Like if you get like Echo Snare, and that's your consume card you're bringing back, it just doesn't feel very good. You know what I mean? Like it requires you to get a good consume card to be good.
See, I would say I think even a bad consume can be good. Like I've had whatever you call it, the sap, or not sap, but the serum, rage serum back before, which I don't really think much of that card, but you know, it was infused, so at the very least it's a free etch trigger to the whole floor. It's a free echo inspire to the whole floor, and a free rage because it doesn't cost a draw, I think is the big thing there. I think it'll always, for me, it's always at least good. If I'm returning a bad consume, there are some cases though, like you kind of have to lean into it sometimes. Like Soul Siphon could be a really bad return, or it could be a game-winning return, right? Like if you have endless eggs, it's game-winning. But if it's the only consumable you have, it's like, well, it's not really going to do anything for repeater, really, past a certain point, right?
Certainly, Shelter with repeater is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's like that's where you start getting into like crazy stuff. Broken memories combos that you can get. Like there's some stuff you can do with repeater that's like really crazy.
Right.
But and then obviously you get into like the real nuts stuff, which is like furnace taps and
Last Stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the pieces of the infinite combo, but it's
Yeah, Awoken Rail Spike combos with it are really good too.
But
Yep.
normally you
Shroud
would just
Spike.
take the one consume, either rank 1. You wouldn't really go for rank 2 since it is the same, it's just a stat boost, but you either go rank 1 or rank 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't mind it as a flex to Shellsmith, if I know it doesn't look like I'm going for something that can really benefit from A, 2 cards returned, but B, even just if I, kind of like what you're talking about, Nate, if you have a low value consume that you just don't even care to, you almost just have a bunch of like echo snares and other low value ones, I think it's good to flex into Shellsmith there, because then on the note of Shelter, right, you're just getting yourself 8 armor a turn.
Yeah, and also if you don't get those cards that return consume cards to your hand, you can just have 1 rank of the repeater, and then you have at least 1 consume cards returned to your hand every single turn, so it's not bad.
I think it's better than Shellsmith. So I would put it like I think they're pretty close, but I think it's better.
I think we can put it at the end here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I'd agree to that.
And,
Marsh Lord.
And I'm gonna sit out. I'm gonna sit out. What? No.
Oh, we need you on this one, Narninian.
No.
So it's definitely not win by itself, because even as good as Bogworm is, he's not going to kill everything. Bogwormling. I'm so biased because apart from a certain tournament round, I have not lost with Marsh Lord. I don't lose with this champion upgrade path.
I need to bring. Hang on, I have an audio clip that I need to play. Hang, 1 second.
I actually never lost with the Marsh Lord ever since that tournament. Yeah.
It's cursed for tournaments. We know that.
It is. It is a tournament curse.
Nobody could get through the 1 seed.
But it's hard for me because, in general, I think eggs are really strong.
Yeah.
They're really, really, really strong. And the more that I played with them, the more that I realized, like, they're apart from Bog Chrysalis, or not Bog Chrysalis, the what's it called?
Bog Deep Cocoon.
Yeah, I think that one's trash. But the other 2 are so good at just packing value into a single thing. Oh, by the way, the Cocoon is fantastic as an essence. It's a great essence.
Yeah.
Terrible unit. But the fact that the eggs are so good anyway, and it's so easy to hatch them. And then you get all the etch triggers on top. Like for me, it's really really easy, in my opinion, to set up an egg build that just wins. You don't need that many cards. You don't need that many consume cards, and it's still very very strong.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also the only one that isn't reliant. It's the default for me if I didn't start with any consume cards if it's offered, because it's the only one that's going to do anything for me ring 1 to possibly ring 2. Whereas
and
the other
eggs are
ones are
just
yeah.
the other thing that's nice about eggs is that they are fantastic at, like, the cocoon is really good at blocking up until it hatches, and then it hatches and it heals. Like, I don't know, there's a lot that I really like about how that build works in general.
Yeah.
And it also is the only Echo Right that, well, I guess Steel Smith can as well, but like Repeater dies very easily. The Echo Right can die, and it doesn't affect whether your build's going to succeed or not. So I don't know. There's a lot of things I really like about it, but I'm super biased because I seem to do really well with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as reliable across the board as Repeater, but I do like it a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has a decent floor. The floor is that you just don't find eggs, I feel, which happens. But even then, it's not bad, right?
If you get a keeper, and it's also very good.
Right.
You have a guaranteed 3 units on a floor with a keeper. I don't know. It's hard to not like that. So,
right.
And the fact that you can fit 3 pips, it's hard because if you have 2 units that are going to make up 2 of those pips, it's kind of scary. You might not draw them, but
Cheater's
if you
Hand can
have a
make it
3
easier.
pip unit, you can fit a 3 pip unit, or you can add a pip to get 2 pip units.
Yeah.
And then you just get an extra 2 units on top, which is really strong. But I also, it can be, I'm sure, like and as it was in the run that we did. What's funny is that run absolutely was winnable. This is what I did. I repeated the run and showed that it was very clearly winnable if you don't greed so hard. But yeah, it's I think it's very very strong. And if I compare it, so you're comparing it against within the Echo Right, like arc there. But if you compare it to just other types of champions, it's 2 units at rank 3. It's 2 units that together have like 150 and 135 stats,
Right.
with upside if you have consume cards.
Right. Yeah, I remember in that run, the run you're talking about, I had some of the worst play, but also some of the best play I've ever had in that. Like on the first few rings, I did so bad. I went Martial Lord and didn't pick eggs, or didn't get eggs. But even with just the bog fly cocoon that comes with the rank 3 Martial Lord, it got me to Divinity. It couldn't get me through Divinity, but it's something to be said that without any egg synergy, it still did good enough, right, to get to that point. And I didn't have much beyond that anyway. Yeah.
If I had misclicked, I also would have been just fine.
Right. The Malika events.
Yes. Oh my god. Trauma. Still feel it. I think the list looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so where do we put eggs? I would put eggs. I think it's better than personally. I think it's better than Steelsmith. I think it's not as reliable as Repeater.
Yeah,
I feel like it's great.
Are we putting it great?
I would put it on great personally.
Yeah.
But I would put
After Repeater. Yeah.
after Repeater.
Yeah.
I would agree. I mean, I've had really good experience with X too. It's that as long as you get at least 1 egg, you're set.
Right.
Also worth to note that Bog Slime is good with all 3 paths.
Oh yeah. That's just an amazing artifact. I mean, honestly, the existence of Bog Slime and Karuska make Inspire even just such a powerful mechanic It's like
Obviously, you'll have the runs that where you just don't really use it that much,
right.
but I feel like those are pretty rare. Even if all you're using it for is to play out your buff cards and your days and your. It's funny. Melee weakness. I think it's still pretty good. I've actually been not taking it nearly as often recently.
Yeah, I don't like it that much.
I think it's good with Rail Beater. I don't think it's quite as good with the spell. But anyway.
It's also, for what it's worth, Martial Lord is the best Echo Right path according to the meta-analysis that I did of like 10 or so Covenant 25 players.
Oh, interesting.
So I've got to go.
Yeah, me too.
Really appreciate the discussion. This was really fun.
So next week,
that was fun.
Button in the Clock Tower.
What was
next
that?
Week, let's do. Next week, let's do some fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I'm gonna head out, and then Gabriot, we just need to combine our two recordings.
Yep, definitely. I will send you what I have. Yep.
I can splice them, and then I can send back if you guys want to post onto your individual channels.
Sure.
And anyway, thanks guys. Talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.